Light Novel Magic and Knights Volume 1 Chapter 7, 8, 9. Knights and Magic Volume 1 Chapter 7, chapters list a physical phenomenon forms out of thin air with a screech, and flies towards the staccato lizard. The spell, Arrow Ripper, slices through the staccato lizard's neck, killing it before it can scream. A lizard is heading this way. Vanguard, ready your shields. The group follows the clear command of the lady. Students lightly equipped with wands and bows retreat to the rear, replaced by students in heavy armor. They form a row and a wall with the shields to fend off the swarming demon beasts. The beasts that survived the onslaught of magic and arrows pounce on the student in the front row with a fierce collision. The students use the shields to repel the claws and fangs of the demon beast, and counter-attack with the swords, taking down a large number of beasts. But the demon beast use the superior numbers to bypass the iron wall defense and to the back. The lightly armored students on standby, behind the vanguards, will attack when they see any beast slip past the defenses. No demon beast will make it through this formation. The middle school students who split into groups when they entered Cloquet's forest gathered and formed into a single unit, positioning themselves into a formation that focuses on defense. The surge of demon beasts charged at them from the depths of the forest. The students took on the waves of demon beasts courageously. They put down one demon beast after another, but the torrent of demon beasts is just on the tip of the iceberg. Some beasts slip through the defense of the edge of the formation, and file towards the forest entrance. If this goes on, the first year at the forest entrance will be attacked. We have to warn them. The female student in command realized the danger and wants to warn the group behind them, but they have another impending crisis. Watch out. A mace-head ogre is coming at us. The student who saw the ogre screams. They were warding off small-sized enemies like staccato lizards and saber cats, which is manageable despite the troubling numbers. But Macehead Ogre is a different ball game. Similar to its name, Macehead Ogre is a 3-meter-tall giant ape with a head full of short and thick horns. It requires the teamwork of several students to fight on par with just one of them. They can't take on this enemy while engaging the horde of small demon beasts. Second file. Aim for the ape's leg. It will be bad if they draw near. Several staff sticks out from the student acting as the defensive wall, casting all sorts of spells. They used fire, wind and lightning magic to battle the demon beasts. We need to turn back time a few hours to understand why the situation is so dire. Morning, the middle school students from the higher grades headed into Cloquet's forest in teams with high spirits. They kept the guard up, advancing deep into the forest with no resistance, and realized that something was wrong. Normally, they would have met with several demon beast attacks this deep into the forest, but there had been nothing so far. There was no news of the demon beast disappearing from Cloquet's forest. The groups hesitantly loiter around the forest, attempting to reach other teams for news. But all of the groups reported the absence of demon beast encounters, with no signs of cats or lizards. Finding no trace of the things that should be there is an abnormal sign, so the crowd decides to report back to the teachers after a short discussion. As they were preparing to leave, the demon beasts started to emerge from left and right. It is a bit of a hassle, but they still raise their arms to destroy the demon beasts. 1. The 2nd of May 10, when the demon beasts numbered in the dozens, everyone's expression changed. Seeing the state the forest is in, they understood that this is another abnormal event, differing from the one they experienced just now. But thankfully, they were all gathered, so they have the strength in numbers, a silver lining of this gloomy situation. With the years of experience in knighthood combat training, the students formed ranks with a formation made for large groups. This is the result of the students who aspire to join an order of knights, displaying the fruits of the hard work. And thus, the group clashes head-on with the swarm of demon beasts, and this brings us to the present situation. This is the 10th Macehead Ogre they have defeated. The tactics of prioritizing ranged attack is working. They judged that staying put will wear them down, so they retreated towards the forest entrance slowly. It was fortunate that the student council president, Stefania Surati, is present. When they split into team activities, she assigned the task and suitable equipment to each group. It was the same for the combined formations, everyone has the role to play. Although they are a pickup group, things are going well. The problem is the lack of a commander. It is great just following the given task, but if they don't act when there is an opportunity, they will miss the chance to take advantage of a situation and waste the resources. Under these circumstances, no one objects when the student council president, who is in her senior year, step up as the commander. She has the nominal title as well as the grades, and was trusted by everyone. Even if this is a pickup group cobbled together on a whim, her instructions were clear and led the group through difficult situation well. The retreat was orderly and casualties was low, but this is bad. The number of demon beasts is a problem, but why are they so adamant about charging us? How much longer can we hold them? Stefania appeared calm when she commands, but she was frantic inside. They still have a lot of stamina and mana, but they will be overwhelmed if this keeps up. We didn't intercept all the demon beasts. I hope the children behind us are safe. The situation is deteriorating, but they still fought on. The first year's training at the outer edge of the forest was attacked while the higher grade students were battling. In the beginning, the students near the forest screamed. Several staccato lizards pounce on the students and bit them. Their attacks weren't fatal, but it is dangerous if a bunch of them strikes together. The instructors rescued them immediately, attacking the demon beasts that were targeting the students. The results of the instructors' actions made the situation worse, but they are not at fault. It will be fine if it was just a few demon beasts, but the demon beasts started to emerge en masse. The teachers missed the chance to fall back and had to keep on fighting. They are holding up well, but the students behind them fell into a panic with the emergence of more demon beasts. The instructors who are supposed to maintain order can't draw back and give the students the proper instructions. The students recklessly waved the staff and cast spells. The blindly casted magic did not threaten the beasts, almost hitting allies instead. Some drew the swords without thinking about the other students that are near them, causing further panic. Compared to the higher grade students, who were prepared and equipped for battle, and had plenty of practical experience, the first years were not ready for a fight. Aero-damned canister shot. Suddenly, someone leap over the panicking first-year students. Silver hair shined brightly under the sun. This image burns deeply into the eyes of the confused students. That person flips in mid-air, aimed for the ground and shot out several air bullets. Canister shot meant casting several spells at the same time like a shotgun. The air bullets hit the ground with the sound of an explosion. The compressed air bullets squeeze the face of the beasts together before blasting the demon beasts and the ground away. Carpet bombing is a large aerial bombing done in a progressive manner to inflict damage in every part of a selected area of land. The phrase evokes the image of explosions completely covering an area, in the same way that a carpet covers a floor. The merciless magic destroyed a large amount of demon beast through carpet bombing. Two more students move in from the left and right. One of them charges into the demon beast mob with a big bastard sword in hand. He used physical boost to swing his giant sword, slicing the demon beasts in half. He used the momentum to turn his body, drawing another weapon from his waist and point it at the surviving beast. Too naive. Sonic boom. This weapon gun staff Gandiva produces a vacuum from its tip, forming an air current rushing towards the demon beasts, hitting those that were outside his sword range. The bodies twisted unnaturally and were blown away. A girl showed up beside him, holding two bayonet staff pointed at different beasts. Riot Sparrow. Lightning fell, accompanied by the sound of thunder the next second, striking the gathered demon beasts. She didn't even look at the beasts that spasmed and died, attaching the gun staff onto the sword in her sheath. She held the dual swords in both hands, slashing at every demon beast that came within range. Even a thin sword can cut demon beasts in half if it is strengthened by magic. The three students attacked like a storm, reducing the number of beasts drastically. The pressure from the approaching swarm lessened, giving everyone a chance to catch the breath. The students' moment stopped not because of the chaos but from the shock of seeing the one-sided massacre. Draw your staff. The short student who leapt over the crowd stood in front of them, and issued an order. The young, tender voice that sounded as pleasant as a bird, had an air of authority, making everyone follow his instructions. Everyone gather up, form into tight ranks. Teacher. The dumbfounded instructors finally came to the senses. Please take command and keep the initiative. Please retreat, the three of us will support the others. The teachers started giving out instructions hurriedly. The students formed a tight formation and strengthened the defense. For first-year students with inferior combat abilities to fight demon beasts, they will need to concentrate the firepower. Although it is still a bit flimsy, the teachers commanding them can handle it. Ernesty stared at the demon beasts rushing out of the forest and slowly raises his Winchester. Chid and AD stood beside him like his guards. Chid leaned the bastard sword on his shoulder with one hand, and grabbed a Gandiva with the other, while AD rested the tips of her dual swords in her hands, on the ground. Their eyes are full of determination when they see the swarm of demon beasts before them. Hey, aren't those numbers a bit too much? Oh well, we can wreak havoc if more of them comes. HMMPI won't hold back. Eru reined in the spirited twins. It's fine if the both of you want to fight, but don't forget about the rest of the student body. They can take care of themselves. Probably. AD wanted to protest but stopped midway, because Eru was staring at her with a stern expression. You don't need to stay here if you just want to wreak havoc. I get it. I will help them. Chid raised his hands in surrender. Fortunately, this is still the entrance of the forest. We can get back to the campsite if we retreat. If we meet up with the Silhouette Knights there, things will lighten up. Before that, Eru casted an arrow damned as he spoke. The demon beast that wanted to attack them while they were talking was sent flying. We need to protect them. Eru made up his mind, lifted Winchester and shot out a string of spells. While the middle schoolers are in the forest, the high schooler night runners were relieved from the duty and started the training. Since they cannot increase the stress on the machines, as the Silhouette Knights have to be conserved for escort duties, the training centered on one-on-one spars. Edgar was in the midst of sword-swinging practice when he heard noises that shouldn't appear from the forest. Hey, isn't the forest rather noisy? The moment he brought it up, the students around him perk up their ears. Sounds of tremors that weren't there before came from the direction of the forest, and they knew what it was. That sound of explosions. Magic. Something is up. Exercise cease. Pilots prepare to sortie. The situation in the forest seems to be bad. Scout out the situation. The group in the camp moved hurriedly. The nightsmiths working on the Silhouette Knights withdraw to let the pilots mount. They skip the initialization check and let the machines stand up, drowning the surroundings with the sound of the churning ether reactor. But they couldn't send all the machines out, so only 5 Silhouette Knights were dispatched into the forest. Hey, look at that. The scale of the crisis was beyond their imagination. Swarms of demon beasts were charging at them before they entered the forest. The numbers were more than they had ever seen. The beasts shrieked as they charged in all directions. What is happening? The demon beasts are going out of control. Are the brats in trouble? They drew the swords and advanced into the forest. They linked up with the first years in no time. The first years has successfully retreated with Eru's quick thinking. They bundled together, retreating slowly as they casted magic to restrict the demon beasts' movements. The beasts that rushed at the formation will be repelled by magic. Edgar moved in to support them, piloting Ulcumber as a shield in front of the first years. The tense first years breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the Silhouette Knights appear and dispose of the demon beasts. The strongest combat units of humanity, the Silhouette Knights are trusted by the populace. Especially at the scene of a demon beast's raid, the power to match 100 demon beasts provided a great sense of security. They retreated to the campsite, setting up fences around the area to fortify the defenses. With the Silhouette Knights taking charge of defense, the instructors and the high school night runners began to discuss the plan of action. There's enough defense to protect the first years, so that isn't an issue. The main worry lies with the higher grade students who delve deep into the forest. Do you know the routes taken by the second and third years? That is hard to say. Because this was meant to be a practical session, the area of operation is the whole forest, and there is no guarantee they will stay in the assigned location. The instructors reviewed the action plan of each higher grade student and groaned with a serious expression. They wanted to rescue them, but with the limited number of Silhouette Knights, they don't know where to start. Cloquet's forest was vast, running around like a headless chicken will be counterintuitive. But they didn't have time to hesitate either. At this point, Ernesty stuck his head out from the instructor's side. Where are the places in the forest that people can gather easily? That. If they want to rendezvous, it should be nearby. The teacher was surprised by Aru's sudden question, but still answered him. It was meaningless to discuss this with a first year, but with his spectacular performance earlier, no one felt that Aru's intrusion was out of place. With the scale of the demon beast horde, won't the seniors group up to resist? That's why I think we should look for places where large group of people can gather. You have a point. The Silhouette Knights can't move easily in heavily forested areas. Taking our combat assets into consideration, we should start our search from open spaces, right? The map sprawled out on the table was marked with red lines showing the routes of advancement. To reach the designated areas, they would have to cut through the center of the forest. Also, you can take out the demon beasts coming this way if you use this route. If anyone is caught in a battle, just holler and you will be fine. Because this was an emergency, everyone accepted Aru's proposal, and formed a team to rescue the higher grade students. The campsite needed guards, so only half of the machines were deployed, 5 Silhouette Knights. Edgar, who was the pilot of the pure white Silhouette Knight, Earlcumber, was the first to volunteer. As he was getting inside Earlcumber, someone called out to him. Edgar turned back and saw Eru standing there. Can I go, too? Why? The family members of my friends are also in the forest. They are worried, so I want to join the search if possible. Edgar felt troubled. Although it is dangerous, it shouldn't be a problem with Aru's combat ability. And with the rational discussion he displayed during the conference, it will be helpful to bring him along. Edgar agreed after thinking about it. Earlcumber let Eru stand on his hand and stood up. Behind him is Helvi and Trandorches and 3 other machines. They entered the forest with heavy steps. Those who have depleted your mana, help the wounded. Front line switch with standby line. Hold the line, everyone just hold on a little longer. The mana were exhausted and they are panting hard. They try to stabilize the breathing as they continue to defeat the unending torrent of demon beasts. The higher grade students protect the wounded as they continue to retreat from the forest. It has been several hours since the battle begun, the retreat has been difficult. They are fine with handling the beast one at a time, but when a huge wave swells up and attack, they are forced to deplete the stamina. The mace-head ogre that shows up from time to time drains the mana. Because they can't cast powerful enough spells as they lack mana, a mace-head ogre managed to close in on them and cause serious damage. About half of the group is in the state of mana depletion or have been wounded, the forces are dwindling. They conserve the remaining stamina and keep switching the vanguard to hold the battle front. But they don't know how much longer they can last. They are close to the campsite, which is the only hope that kept them going. But reality is cruel. Two mace-head ogres appeared dead ahead. They are so agitated that they are foaming at the mouth, charging straight at the group. Compared to the beginning of the battle, the magic at the disposal are much weaker, so the students couldn't stop them. The vanguards frown. The sole mace-head ogre that attacked earlier wiped out over a dozen students, inflicting heavy casualties. If they take on two at the same time, they might be wiped out. Stefania, who is in command, knows this very well. On top of giving out commands, she has moved to the front line with her staff in hand. She has gone through all sorts of possibilities while fighting, but they don't have the combat prowess to break away from the encirclement. The group is reaching the limit of the physical and mana reserves. They can't muster the strength to defeat the ogres even if they wanted to. The mace-head ogre has an endurance that matches its tough appearance. They advanced steadily, making light of the desperate struggles of the students. The chaotic attacks served to agitate them instead, making them more excitable. This is it. Someone mumbled this softly. The mace-head ogre who was right before them raised the fist, aiming for the head of a vanguard. The vanguard raised the shields, even though it is in vain. That's why he didn't understand what happened when he heard the sound of a dull explosion over his head. He didn't see several piercing lances flying over his head with incredible accuracy, hitting the arm of the mace-head ogre dead on. He also missed seeing the piercing lance exploding one by one in accordance to its script, blowing the ogre's arm away. By the time the vanguard composed himself, the ogre was running away, yelping. Following immediately was something that is beyond his imagination. The one which came flying wasn't just the magic projectile, but the caster himself, Ernesty, who rushed in like a silver bullet. This was a literal description, as Eru was conjuring, arrow thrust, to accelerate as he was leaping, just like a bullet. He used the momentum to catch up with the limping ogre who lost its arm, slashing off its head with a sonic blade. The head flew into the air and the massive body collapsed. Eru landed with enough force to dig into the ground, turns his head as he slides and pointed his Winchester at the other mace-head ogre. Fireball was rapidly cast from its tip, engulfing the ogre, an explosion that shakes the ground. Half of the ogre's body was charred and falls. Now's the chance. Kill it. Stefania was stunned by Eru's sudden intrusion into the battlefield, but she didn't let the chance slip away. Her command made the students move, finishing off the ogre. Eru. Sorry for the wait, Student Council President. I brought reliable reinforcements. Without needing Eru to show her, Shekold hear heavy footfalls behind. The rescue team overtakes the higher-grade students, spreading out in front and protecting them. The 10-meter-tall giant knight swung its gigantic iron sword, easily wiping out a wave of demon beasts. This was the overwhelming strength of humanity's strongest weapon. The students erupted in cheers at the sight of the powerful silhouette knights. There are no reinforcements more reassuring for the group on the verge of defeat. They are safe. Well, bringing Ernesty along was the right choice. Edgar, who was riding inside Erlcumber, mumbles to himself, as he drives the demon beasts away. They followed Eru's suggestion and searched for places with wide open spaces. They discovered the higher-grade students shortly after advancing in that direction. That is because the students are bunched together and ready to retreat. But they were in a crisis when Edgar found them. The mace-head ogres were about to break through the formation. They can take down the demon beasts easily with the silhouette knight's power, but they are too far away. They will also hit the students if they use the silhouette arms. Frustrated with his inability to help, despite having the strength to do so, Edgar grinded his teeth in regret. At this moment, Ernesty, who is in the hand of Erlcumber, charged ahead. The ogres fell easily before the rampaging Eru, making Edgar sigh. His performance is shameful when compared to Eru. With the silhouette knights who made it in the nick of time as escorts, the students continue to retreat. There are many injuries, but no one was lost and everybody made it back to the campsite in one piece. This happened slightly after the Lihiala Pilot Academy student body left Jantunan for Cloquet's Forest. A silhouette knight passed by the convoy and arrives at the eastern gate of Jantunan. This is probably urgent as the exhausted knight runner approached the knights after reaching the gate. The knights were stunned by the sudden turn of events, but the faces turned pale after receiving the report of the pilot and hastily informed the commander. Is this true? Commander of Jantunan Garrison Knights, Philip Halligan's expression changed after hearing the report from his subordinate. The vice commander, Gottfried Hyvärinen, who was also in the commander's office, was expressionless, but his face is white. This showed the impact this report gave them. Yes, sir. Stronghold Balgari was decimated under the attack of the battalion-level demon beast, Land Emperor. It is likely the defending team has been wiped out. Behemoth is moving west into the heart of the kingdom, and is expected to show up around Jantunan soon. Sir. Battalion-level demon beast's sudden attack makes Philip's head ache like a nightmare. But the commander has no time to waste. It is fortunate a night runner brought this news to him, giving him some buffer time to prepare for the behemoth to appear. Every second is precious. Issue emergency orders, muster all the knights near Jantunan. This order overrides any mission they are currently undertaking. They orderly repeated his given orders, salute and sprinted out immediately. Phillips and Gottfried dash out as if they were chasing after him, and head towards the war council room. A behemoth. Even Jantunan doesn't have a battalion, only the capital can match that. The categorization is only a guideline. Even with our forces, we can take it down if we are prepared for major losses. Philip clenched his fist as he moved hurriedly. I know, but the problem is the scale of the losses. It's meaningless to blindly sacrifice the 100 silhouette knights in our garrison. Jantunan will be left defenseless. Gottfried was quiet after hearing this. He did not wish to risk the destruction of the band of knights, but Behemoth has already ravaged a stronghold. If Jantunan suffers heavy collateral damage, the trade routes of the kingdom will be heavily congested. If the supplies to the front lines are cut off, it will adversely affect the fortresses, leading to more catastrophes. This could determine the fate of the entire nation. They have to kill the behemoth even if it takes the lives of the entire knight company. Gottfried had to offer his advice if necessary, that is his duty as the vice commander. No, there is no time to discuss this. If we don't stop it here, the entire kingdom might fall. Send an envoy to the capital, they will need to send a replacement company of knights after we fall. Seeing Philip's face twist with worry, Gottfried can only nod in silence. All the knights on duty were already there when Philip entered the war council room. All of them wore anxious expressions because of the impending crisis. The knights outside the city received a call order, so they had to assess the situation before all the knights return. A map was prepared, and the possible advancement route of the behemoth was highlighted. The knight runner who sent the warning didn't know the current position of the behemoth either, so they had to factor in things such as terrain and the mobility of the behemoth to predict its advancement route, and estimate its rough position. They will also need to decide where they will fight the behemoth. From the direction it is headed and the terrain around Stronghold Barclay, the most possible route is around Dweekbell Mountains, through the forest at the foot of the mountain. That is right beside Jantunan. Its current estimated position. The knight who was asked pointed to the map. I think it passed through Creeple Plains and is about to enter Cloquet's Forest. Cloquet's Forest. That's closer than I thought. If we are going to intercept it, we will need to do it somewhere closer to Jantunan. A knight behind him suddenly shouts. Did you say Cloquet's Forest? What's wrong with Cloquet's Forest? No one wanted to listen to bad news, but they needed to keep tabs on elements that could affect them. Before the watchful eyes of everyone, the knight announced with a pale face. Lihiala Academy is conducting a field trip there right now. Wah! All the knights present are speechless. Not only Jantunen, even citizens who are the assets of the nation, as well as the children, are in danger. There are knights in the room who has relatives studying at LightNovel knighthood school right now. Some of the knights approached Philip frantically. We need to go to Cloquet's forest. We have to save the children. Philip was troubled with the accumulating problems, but he did not consider it for long. Another mission takes priority. Quote, Send out messengers, but the company will stay put until we have gathered enough forces. Commander, are you forsaking them? Nonsense. Philip roared at the knights who were pestering him, his voice filled with anguish. I want to help them too, but with our current forces, we will need to give everything to take down the behemoth. I am not optimistic about the coming battle. Striking now without mustering the whole company will just be wasting our forces, we might even be wiped out by the behemoth. Don't be mistaken. Our objective is to defeat the behemoth, defend Jantunen and safeguard the entire Fremavira kingdom. The rowdy knights quietened down. They also understood that they have no say in this. What we can do now is to have faith in the luck and wits. They looked into the darkness in the direction of Cloquet's forest. The entrance of Cloquet's forest, LightNovel knighthood school campsite. After the upper-grade students in middle school retreated successfully, a simple fence was erected alongside the silhouette knights, forming a simple line of defense. Most demon beasts emerging from the forest are about 1 meter in height, the largest being 3 meters tall. The combat capabilities are insignificant compared to the 10-meter-tall silhouette knights. They swat away clusters of beasts with a single sword swing. But there are a few that sneak past because of the large difference in size. They swarm towards the fence, and are held off by the students who move in to fill the gap. From the demon beast's viewpoint, the silhouette knight who seems to be flaunting its existence is intimidating. Unwilling to face them, the beasts flank the silhouette knights, attacking the base camp from either side. The middle schoolers in the higher grades suffered many casualties, so this is a favorable situation for the knighthood students who lack the manpower. After the sun sets beyond the mountains, the attack came to an end. The students, who are alert even with the absence of enemies, instinctively felt that the battle was over and takes a breather. Is the demon beast stampede over? Stefania Surati, who felt fatigue from the depth of her heart, was relieved. She was leading the able-bodied student body to the very end. They met up with the teachers back at the base camp, but they judged that it will be easier for Stefania, who has been commanding from the very beginning, to continue. But part of it was because of her sense of responsibility. CHID, AD. Eru. When the situation has calmed down, she greeted the students, who were resting, and surveyed the campsite. She called out to the familiar faces loudly when she came across them. Ah, Oni-sama. Are you okay? I heard the student body was in trouble. Stefania shakes her head. As you can see, I am doing well. Enough about me, you guys were reckless out there. Stefania looked amazed as she spoke. The students who just retreated back to camp were riddled with wounds and fatigue, so the combat capabilities were minimal. They will struggle to handle the demon beasts that sneak past the silhouette knights in the current state. But thanks to Eru buying time for them, they managed to recover and made it through. We were the only ones who can still fight, so we went a little overboard. I think the three of you are as effective as a platoon, and that is not going a little overboard. Sigh, never mind. More importantly, Eru. Stefania approached Eru, who was standing behind the two of them, and hugged him. She didn't care about Eru, who was surprised and couldn't resist, and rubbed her face on that silky, smooth hair of his. Ah, this healing I can keep fighting if Eru is here. Stefania-senpai. Can't be helped. I will give her some reward for her hard work. If my sacrifice can improve her mood, then, this is nothing. Stefania happily played with his hair and poked his cheeks. Eru did not resist, and allowed her to toy with him. Adi seemed angry, but didn't stop her. Stefania enjoyed herself with the cuddling for a long while. Suddenly an awkward voice called her from behind. A student council president. The student was looking for her, but was surprised at how creepy Stefania's smile was. This was expected as Stefania was leading the student body coolly earlier, but is now hugging a junior with a lewd smile. What is it? The teacher is asking for you to discuss our next move. I understand. Sorry you three. Let's chat later, it will just take a little while. It was too late to cover it up, but Stefania didn't seem to mind, changing to student council president mode immediately. The three of them waved at her with an amazed expression as Stefania leaves. All right, we made it past the dangerous period, but what's next? They made it through the stampede of the demon beasts, but Eru didn't think that things are over just yet. He looked back at Cloquet's forest, which seems to be growing darker, as if it wants to mask itself from Eru's sight. Even Eru is not sure what was lurking deep within the forest. And so, we are moving out tomorrow. The instructors are unable to come to a consensus for the next course of action. This is understandable as they have not grasped the whole picture. Anyway, they had informed everyone of the course of action over dinner. Eru and the others drank the soup made from simple vegetables and the food they brought along, while they confirmed the circumstances. Correct, we have many wounded but no one is in danger of dying, the worst of it are just fractures. There are many who have depleted the mana and are exhausted. The teachers feel that it is dangerous to move with our inadequate fighting power. Yes, but isn't it dangerous to rest here? The horses will also be affected by the dark. The instructors decided that being attacked while exhausted and moving on the carriages will be too risky. It is better to wait for daybreak while taking advantage of the base camp's defenses. I think we won't be attacked by demon beasts in such numbers anytime soon. Oh, what an optimistic view. Not really. All the options are like a gamble. This is simply choosing the safest option. If something does come in the middle of the night, it will be easier for the Silhouette Knight to defend if we stay put. What they can do now is to rest up, detect danger early and react to the situation. In the end, they have to depend on themselves. After dinner, they try to relax and shake off the tense emotions, and put the hopes in making it to Jantunan when morning comes. But they missed an important thing: what created the stampede. They didn't notice that the demon beasts heading the way were desperate, as if something was chasing them to the west. They only regret missing this detail during the twilight hours just before dawn. The red sun rises slowly over the mountain range. The students, who took the last shift, suppressed the drowsiness and yawns. The surrounding is peaceful. After meeting the large-scale migration of the demon beasts, there were almost no demon beasts left in Cloquet's forest. The whole forest seems to have died with a silent air. And that silence was broken suddenly. They noticed the weird noise coming from the forest. The sound of trees breaking and falling appears to follow a rhythm. Something heavy seems to be hitting the ground. It didn't take long for them to realize what that meant, sounding the alarm immediately. Oh shit. A big one. A big one is coming. Both instructors and students who were sleeping jumped out of bed when the alarm sounded. They didn't sleep well because of the tension, so everyone was moving once they got up. The high school night runners, who are dragging the tired bodies to perform the standby duties, mount the Silhouette Knights, activating them immediately to guard the entrance to the forest. The sound of trees falling can be heard clearly now, along with the thundering footsteps. It is clear that something big is approaching. Hey, isn't this bad? It goes without saying that everyone can feel that this is a crisis like never before. In this intense atmosphere, everyone's eyes are drawn towards the forest entrance. There is no demon beast larger than dual level in Cloquet's forest. That was the reason it was chosen for the field trip. But the footfalls of the approaching beast tells us how large it is. It was a large demon beast that shouldn't appear in Cloquet's forest. The swarms of demon beasts that attacked them out of nowhere. The demon beast wave was so large, as if the whole forest was rushing out. Could it be that they were chased out by the intruding colossal beast? The trees near the entrance fell like dominoes. Finally, the demon beast appeared with the light of the breaking dawn. It was covered in uneven armor with protruding edges. It was easily mistaken for a mountain, and humanity's strongest weapon. The silhouette knight looked as weak as a child in contrast. Its eyes that are disproportionately small scanned the area before it. Everyone was awestruck, feeling fearful and weak before its majesty. Land Emperor, the colossal beast that appeared at the border of the nation is now advancing dangerously close to Jantunan. An abnormal silence enclosed this space. It spurns from the tension between the demon beast and the people present. The humans on scene, Lihiala's students, are awed by the gargantuan-sized behemoth and can't move. The elite knights posted at the front lines were also stunned when they saw the behemoth. It is too much to ask 15-year-old students to find enough courage to stand up to it. During the moment when time seemed to freeze, the behemoth moved first with its calmer mindset. It looked around, opened its mouth and howled. Instead of sound, it felt closer to a shock wave moving through the air. Its horrifying lung capacity released a roar that made the earth tremble, shattering several trees close to it. The armor of the silhouette knights closest to it shivers, and it took a few steps backwards because of the pressure. The sound is so loud that the students had curled up in a ball, cupping their ears, some even fainted from the shock wave. This is the signal that undid the bindings. When they started moving, the silence before was just like an illusion. Everyone is running away from the demon beast as if they were being pushed back. This is not because they have come to the senses but the chaotic actions due to the panic. The instructors lost control of the situation, everyone is just focused on running away from the behemoth. Escaping is the best option under such circumstances, but the way they are doing it is bad. The range a human can travel on foot is limited, they need to run to the carriage if they want to escape further. The panic-stricken students didn't think about that, and just concentrated on getting away in any direction. Just as the group was dispersing, there was suddenly an explosion at the front. No matter how terrified the people are, they won't run into an explosion. The student body's movement stopped for an instant and a figure used this chance to jump in front of everyone. Get away. Run. It's dangerous. Everyone head for the carriage. Following Aru's lead, the few students who kept the wits shot out fireball, preventing the group from spreading out. They attracted the attention of the students with spells, herding them towards the carriage like hunting guides. They are still far from being calm, but the group is stable enough to understand instructions. They run towards the carriage in order to escape from the behemoth. The middle schoolers are not the only ones awed by the behemoth, it was the same for the high school night runners. Because they are in possession of the powerful silhouette knights, the behemoth is a bigger threat to them. With the responsibility that comes with this power, they can't run away. Even if they want to fight, the enemy is too strong. Don't stop. Move. Caught in a dilemma because of an enemy out of the league, the first to snap out of it is Edgar. Be it fight or flight, remaining still before the behemoth is like suicide. The night runners finally recognize that the behemoth is preparing to charge and tries to evade in a panic. The momentum of the beast is incomparable to anything in this world. Even a silhouette knight won't stand a chance when facing one. The pilots break out in cold sweat, losing the will to fight. What can they do to fight this terrifying demon beast? But one man, Edgar, suppressed his fear when he realized the advancement route of the behemoth coincides with the carriages the middle schoolers are using to flee, and said with resolve, "I will distract the behemoth. Everyone, please lend me your strength." Huh. Edgar. Do you know what you are saying? That is a behemoth. It will send all of us flying with a kick. I know. But our juniors will be wiped out if we let it rampage. No, not just that. It will assault Jantunan if it heads down the same way as the carriages. Helvi, who snapped at Edgar, knows, too. There is nowhere to run. Even if they escape from here, it will just lead to more collateral damage. She gritted her teeth with enough force to splinter it. We have no choice but to go through with it. We are knights. We learned swordsmanship and piloting in order to protect our kingdom. How can we run without a fight? Edgar equips magic armament onto Erlcumber as he spoke. The ether reactor is running. The flow of mana activates the magic armament. The whole silhouette knight glows dimly. I don't want to die pointlessly either. We need to draw the behemoth's attention. Yes, there's no other way. Edgar didn't want to lose the spirit he managed to squeeze out. Erlcumber led the charge, aiming at the behemoth's leg. All units, draw staff. Use magic bombardment to draw its attention and pull back. Edgar shouts as he pulls his control stick all the way back. Erlcumber channels its mana to the magic armament under the control of its pilot, lightning staff Arquebus. The tip of the simple longish weapon glows brightly. A lightning bolt strikes at the behemoth with a flash. Unfortunately, the blast had no effect. One reason is the behemoth is too big, the other factor is the electricity was directed towards the ground from the armored shell without hurting the interior. The other three silhouette knights apart from Edgar has also armed themselves with magic armaments, circling around the behemoth while firing their override spells. It is hard to tell the effectiveness of the attacks, but they achieved the goal of getting the behemoth's attention. The behemoth turns its head when it noticed the disturbance, looking at the silhouette knights casting spells at it with annoyed eyes. How? It is ineffective. It's fine. Don't stop and run. We just need to buy some time. The night runners understood the behemoth is focusing on them, so they lure the behemoth away from the middle schoolers and retreat at full speed. As the high school pilots battles the behemoth, the middle schoolers are rushing onto the carriage. Because of the number of people, only about half of them has evacuated despite the carriages being dispatched one by one. There are still a lot of people left. We need more time. We can only depend on our seniors now. Eru stands at the end of the line, looking at the fight between the behemoth and the silhouette knights with a grim expression. Using spells beyond human capabilities, override spells are negated by the invulnerable armor shell, leaving no trace of injury. Before the colossal beast, even the crystallization of human technology, the silhouette knights are insignificant. The Eru, who is just one person, is even more powerless. He has a serious face. The situation of the high school pilots is overwhelmingly bad. No, it is hopeless. Their attacks does no damage at all. The tactics revolves around retreating, disrupting it with deft movements. The silhouette knights will fall with just a single hit because of the differences in mass. If the pilot continue to accumulate fatigue and stress, it is hard to think of a good outcome. I will evacuate everyone, so don't die, senpai. No matter how fast a silhouette knight is, there is no guarantee it can get out of the way of an angry, charging behemoth. Hence, the other knights will concentrate their attacks on the behemoth to divert its attention, if it locks onto the comrades. Their attacks did not hurt the behemoth, but it was frustrated with the annoyance. Ha ha ha. Is that it? This thing is big, but can't do anything to us. Dietrich shouted. In order to overcome the intimidating aura stemming from the gigantic body of the beast, he has to convince himself that he has the upper hand. It was meant to motivate himself, but because the tactics of stalling for time was working too well, they were taking things lightly. Could it be, this is a slow and dumb beast that is all bark with no bite? In actual fact, it will take just one hit to shatter a silhouette knight, but toying with the behemoth this way has dulled the sense of judgment. For a short time, they seem to be successful in the bid to drag out the battle. The behemoth that is chasing after the escaping silhouette knights slowed down suddenly. The pilots watched the behemoth's changes, as it took a huge breath with a lung capacity appropriate to its colossal size, sucking in an illogical amount of air. The next second, a fierce breath of tornado shot out from its mouth. This is a ranged magic attack. The pilots, who assumed the behemoth can only charge and attack physically, were caught off guard by the sudden projectile spell. A tornado charged in a straight line. The turbulence from the current engulfed a machine that didn't get away in time. The Silhouette Knight couldn't resist the raging air currents which twisted its armor and squashed its crystal tissue. The 10-meter-tall mass of steel, the Silhouette Knight flew into the sky and fell heavily to the ground. The impact shatters the limbs which has the least durability, which breaks off from the torso. Because the Silhouette Knights are humanoid-shaped, its tattered image burns deep into the heart of the pilots. Hya. Ugu. Wa. Dietrich saw the whole process clearly. His classmate, who has been with him through high school, and his Silhouette Knight was destroyed, making him scream as if his throat was in spasm. The next moment, another machine disappeared before Dietrich's eyes with a loud bang. He didn't understand what happened, but he gets it when he shifts his gaze. The behemoth struck with its tail. The moment that machine stopped, it was hit by the tail which was swinging with inertia, flying out in a twisted lump. Dietrich is safe because of luck, his position was slightly out of range. He would have been swept by the tail if he was a couple of steps forward. Two Silhouette Knights were easily shattered like some pottery in the blink of an eye. The pilots realized how wrong they were to think they can hold the behemoth off somehow. The behemoth turns its head towards the surviving Silhouette Knights as if it was flaunting how easily it can destroy them. The perpetrator of the entire incident was targeting them next. Wara. Ora. The two sounds coincide with each other. The former was Dietrich screaming in horror, because of the demon beast, the latter was Edgar, shouting to overcome the fear in his heart to steel himself. Damn! How can I be so careless? The behemoth is a battalion-level demon beast. I knew it was a monster that cannot be handled by the handful of us. Edgar couldn't forgive himself for the loss of his comrade's life, because he underestimated the enemy. His anger is stronger than his fear, pushing him forward. Everyone, avoid facing it head-on. No matter what, evasion takes priority. Just a bit more, everyone, please hang on. They had engaged the behemoth, everyone will be wiped out if they turn and run suddenly. After hearing Edgar's spirited voice, the other night runners responded to him, even though they are shivering with fear. All of them used everything they had to dodge the behemoth's attack. Right now, they can only put the life on the line and keep pestering the behemoth. Under the rampage of the behemoth's magic, the high school pilots are forced into a dire situation. Eru and the others had safely evacuated the middle schoolers, and he hopped onto the last carriage himself. He watched the battle from the carriage, speeding away from the behemoth. The high schoolers are at a severe disadvantage with the magic attack of the behemoth, killing off any chance for them to run away, even if Eru and the rest had left. The conversation he had with Edgar flashed across his mind. Even if his message didn't reach them, the only thing he can do now is to give his support. At this moment, a red shadow appeared in the corner of Eru's eye. He turned his head quickly, and was shocked after he identified it. The red shadow was the Silhouette Knight, Gael. Could it be? As he was thinking, he turned his head ahead and saw the battle still raging on between the behemoth and the other Silhouette Knights. This means Gael is abandoning the other students and escaping by himself. Eru jumped off the carriage when he understood this. Everyone was stunned by his action and couldn't stop him. He ran after Gael with the speed of a bullet. A red Silhouette Knight was running in the bright forest under the sunny sky. The quiet forest extends all around it, there is nothing in the surroundings. But the red machine was focused on its task, sprinting hard as if it was being chased. In fact, the red Silhouette Knight Gael and its pilot Dietrich units was pressed into this situation with no way to escape. What is driving Dietrich is pure terror. The image of his classmate's Silhouette Knight being crushed by the behemoth repeats in his mind endlessly. Dietrich doesn't even dare to turn back, blindly pushing Gael to sprint forward. Although he is not the one running, but his lungs are constricted because of fear and his breathing is irregular. Night runners have absolute trust in the machines. There are demon beasts which have power beyond the Silhouette Knights, but Dietrich didn't think they were invincible. He was not prepared to face an enemy that shrugged off attacks and can destroy Silhouette Knights in one hit. In the end, he panicked, and made the shameful choice of saving himself by sacrificing his classmates. But the goddess of fate did not let him off so easily. Gaale's speed suddenly dropped drastically. Although Dietrich was panicking, he immediately thought of a reason for this. He went through the battle earlier and sprinted at full speed. He didn't display the calmness he showed during his training, running hard in an inefficient manner. What awaits him is a dead battery. The fear that accompanied his immobility seizes Dietrich, but he could still do something about it. He stops Gaal and switched to standby mode to rest and recover his mana reserve. After confirming that the behemoth is not pursuing him, he sighed in relief and steadied his rough breathing. After stopping, he gathered some of his wits and felt a strong pang of regret. He shakes his head to clear away these thoughts. But being unable to move, all sorts of thoughts emerged, pushing Dietrich into a corner. That's right, I abandoned my comrades and ran, leaving your brother in arms behind, a shameful behavior for knights. So what? Staying there means dying in vain. I only chose to live, and the code of chivalry didn't say anything about dying for nothing. Dietrich denies the accusations of his own conscience. His calm breathing becomes rough again. He didn't even notice his hand holding the control stick is becoming stiff because he was gripping too hard. His eyes were wide open as he sweated profusely, and he continued to affirm and deny his own thoughts. Dietrich, who was tormented by his own thoughts, heard a sound that drew closer in the distance and came to his senses. That is the screeching sound of compressed air, which is followed by the sound of metal rubbing against metal. The vision in front of him suddenly widened, and he couldn't react because of how sudden things were happening. The chest plate armor of the Silhouette Knights was connected by compressed air for ease of entry into the cockpit. But it was opened suddenly, although he didn't activate the control for the hatch, and has no reason to do so. To open the hatch from the outside, you had to manipulate a complicated set of levers and had to be careful not to dismantle the armor by accident. Based on this situation, someone is opening the hatch from the outside using the lever. A figure jumped up to the open hatch, which confirmed his deduction. It was a petite body, with a head of silvery, purple hair. That figure is Ernesti, who smiles casually at Dietrich and says, I finally caught up with you, senpai. Eru said in a casual tone, as if he has simply forgotten to bring something. Eru tilts his head and continued, I will go straight to the point, senpai, are you running away? For Eru, this question was meant to be a confirmation, but Dietrich trembled when he heard Eru. The sudden appearance of his junior asking so bluntly made him hysterical. Damn. Right. Running. What's wrong with that? Just missing one man won't change the tide of battle. Why do I have to die in vain? The chivalry code doesn't tell us to abandon our lives. Dietrich repeats his thoughts, not caring how broken his reasoning was. He did not answer Eru, but was trying to convince himself. Eru nods with his usual peaceful smile and said to the agitated Dietrich, that's great. What? Dietrich didn't expect such a reaction and lifted his head up, tongue-tied. Great. What did he say to make Eru so happy? Because that reason is sufficient for me to borrow Gaal from you. When Dietrich realized what he meant, Eru has drawn his Winchester. This is the last thing he remembered while he was still conscious. After knocking Dietrich out with a single air bullet, Eru made a pleased expression and nodded his head with satisfaction. Although he can sympathize with Dietrich's situation, Eru is still angry. Eru perked himself up and scanned the cockpit. Silhouette Knights are 10-meter-tall giants, but the cockpit was tight and messy with all sorts of gears. The most prominent feature is the seat in the center, the control stick to the side and the pedals under the seat. The Night Runner controls the Silhouette Knight by holding the control sticks and stepping on the pedals. Eru recalls the functions of the pilot's seat and the activation procedure. After Eru undid the harness and was preparing to drag the unconscious Dietrich out, he thought of something. If I leave him here unconscious, won't he die if wild beasts attack him? Although he was angry at Dietrich for running away by himself, Eru was not willing to kill him. After contemplating for a while, Eru saw some space behind the seat. The cockpit of Silhouette Knights will usually have blankets, food, and a first aid kit for emergency supplies, enough for a few days of solo traveling if they lost contact with the team. These items are stuffed behind the seat so they won't interfere when they are piloting. It's a bit of a waste, but I can make space here. Eru randomly pulled out some of the items and threw them out. After confirming that there is enough space, he squeezed the unconscious Dietrich in there. Although this position was uncomfortable for humans, but Eru wasn't bothered. After settling Dietrich, Eru turned towards the seat. Unfortunately, the size is designed for high schoolers. Eru won't be able to reach the control sticks and pedals with his stature. The seat does not have the convenient function of being adjustable like the cars back on Earth. Eru had already anticipated this, and he came with a plan in his mind. He slashed at the consoles on either side of the seat calmly, destroying its casing. He was not doing this out of frustration. He pulled out silver wires from within the destroyed panels, silver nerves. Eru coiled the wires around Winchester, sat down and buckled himself in. Winchester is made from that white mist tree that is an excellent conductor of mana. It becomes a primitive control input device by entangling silver nerves around it. I will have to do this live with no backup plan. Failure is not an option. The silver nerves transmit mana and scripts through the control sticks and pedals to the magic engine, which in turn uses scripts to operate the Silhouette Knight. The commands of the pilots are interpreted by the Magus engine, transforming them into scripts to move each part of the Silhouette Knight. Taking this concept to the extreme, if you have great control over the scripts, you can operate the Silhouette Knight without control sticks. But that is only in theory. It is difficult for pilots to conceptualize and control Silhouette Knights through scripts alone, so the control sticks and pedals are necessary to reduce the burden on the pilots and make control simpler. By having physical control sticks and pedals that matches the four limbs of the pilots, the movement of these controls can be used as input data for the movements of the robot, a semi-automatic mode of control. The current way of riding a Silhouette Knights is a combination of physical control and script transmission, a balance between simplicity of control and complexity of actions that can be taken. The problem Eru has with the Silhouette Knight lies with the difficulty in using the physical controls. That's why he planned to use total script control from the start, using his own Magus circuit to handle the large stream of control scripts. This is an absurd idea, but Eru has the script processing speed beyond the realm of normal humans, so it was a worthwhile bet. Eru took a light breath, calmed down, closed his eyes and concentrated. The Winchester connects to the Magus engine through the silver nerves. Normally, it is the Night Runner who answers the magic input query, so there wasn't any resistance with the pilot assuming direct control. It was surprisingly easy to establish a bypass route. Eru's conscious became one with the Silhouette Knight, reading and processing the pre-programmed scripts in the magic engine. Eru analyzed the script with his eyes closed. He constructed a magic program from nothing, growing it outwards in all directions. Arms stretched out from Eru's mind to draw the magic program, reading its contents. Even though the code and symbols were different, but being in the flow of data is nostalgic, and he smiled gently. All right, time to show you see the power of a professional programmer. He began analyzing the core of the magic scripts at a fast pace, starting with comparing what he had learned so far with the scripts within the Magus engine. Starting pattern analysis. Similar scripts detected, physical boost, amplifier. Most of the scripts in the Magus engine were similar to the scripts he knew. Eru identified them one by one, using the script to understand its purpose. The more similarities there were, the faster he could grasp the internal workings. The base is physical boost. Crystal tissue is the emulation of muscle tissues. To move them, the theory is the same. Using architect's sigils, he dissected each script. Each part formed complicated patterns and are interconnected. The magic program is expanding to the limit of his conscious. The control of the crystal tissue. Placement, the connection between each of the modules, output control, this is the mana output of the ether reactor. Gael, which was kneeling on one knee in standby mode, trembles slightly. Its fingers move, its eyes begins to focus and see its surroundings clearly. To activate, I will need to connect my physical boost with the movement script of the Silhouette Knight. It needs to be converted to accommodate the Silhouette Knight, using the default output control parameters to move. The mana produced by the ether reactor executes the script issued by the pilot, broadcasted out to the entire Silhouette Knight through the silver nerves. The Silhouette Knight loyally obeys the command, using the mana stored in the crystal tissue to contract and expand. The machine vibrates, standing up slowly like a newborn deer. Operation parameter conversion complete, activation starting. Adjusting output values, mana reserves adequate. Okay, take one step. Gaele's gigantic body balanced itself awkwardly, taking one heavy step after another, taking large but unsteady strides. The movement is like a zombie, staggering and slow. Feedback adjustment, optimizing. Eru used the feedback details from practical movements to scan for excessive movement in the crystal tissue and debugs the script. These scripts still has traces of being a magic script, but errors were detected by synchronizing the movement and user input, optimizing it in a short time. Gaele's movement changed from unsightly shuffling to a graceful walk in the span of a few steps. It had been half an hour since Eru started accessing the Magus engine. The Silhouette Knight, the weapon which is the crystallization of humanity's wisdom, was now completely under his control. Gael moved as Eru wishes. There are no lags because of physical defects or inefficient scripting. It is one with the pilot, making total full control a reality. The situation is dire. The high school night runners are in a deadly battle all this while, so Eru issued Gael a command. It accepts the command and starts sprinting as if to make up for all the time that was wasted. But as he ran, Eru's expression shifted from attention to a smile. He didn't feel anxious or pressured. The reason was simple, Eru was piloting a robot right now. The robot follows his wishes and was sprinting wildly. Eru didn't think too much when he chased after Gael, he was too preoccupied when accessing the Magus engine. He only had the leisure to think after he started moving, coming to terms with what he was doing. Eru thinks it is childish to react this way, but he couldn't contain his emotions. Robot, robot, I am piloting a running robot. For him, be it the tremor of each step the machine took, the holo monitor showing the scenery that was disappearing at an horrifyingly fast pace of the inertia Eru is feeling, all of it felt so blissful. Who can stop Eru's joyous laughter? Eru forgot about the powerful demon beast that was waiting for him ahead, and immersed himself in the happiness of piloting a Silhouette Knight. Gael ferries Eru, who forget his original objective as well as the foaming and unconscious Dietrich towards the battlefield at an amazing pace. Knights and Magic Volume 1 Chapter 8, chapters list the trees in the plains increased in number gradually, until its density matched that of a forest. A road paved with stones extended to the east of this forest. It was the biggest road in the Fremavira kingdom that leads to the East Fremavira Highway. From Kankanen to Jantunen was the West Fremavira Highway, and from Jantunen to the kingdom's border was the East Fremavira Highway. These two highways are built with cobblestones, a historical route that was paved for the ease of transport when constructing the fortress at the front lines. It now shoulders the duty of intra-kingdom transport. Its active use matched its reputation as the leading traffic junction. The road that is used frequently by caravans with silhouette night escorts was desolated. It might be due to the demon beast stampede or the rumors spreading among merchants about the sightings of a gargantuan demon beast. There is a tense silence on this road, which was broken suddenly. The sound of hooves from dozens of carriages reverberated in the air, as they ferried the Lahiala Pilot Academy students who are escaping. The high school night runners are risking their lives to cover the evacuation, so the carriages were running at full speed. But this was too taxing on the horses, so the pace was slower than normal. Even so, they were already halfway to Jantunan. The exhausted students sat in the carriages. They weren't chased by any demon beasts during this period. They had calmed down after some time, but the uneasiness in the chest lingers. What happened to Eru? With this solemn atmosphere, Chid and Adi sat on the last carriage, looking behind them blankly. Eru jumped off the carriage and entered the forest when they were escaping from Cloquet's forest. It happened so suddenly, that they lost track of him before they could even try to stop Eru. Hey, could it be? Chid mumbled, as if he thought of something. Adi tilted her head questioningly. That guy, did he hijack a silhouette night to join the fight? Impossible. Adi wanted to dismiss it, but fell into deep thought. The probable deduction morphs into a clear image in her mind. Common sense tells her that Eru, who did not attend pilot school, can't control a silhouette night. But he might make it work with what he learned through self-study. She didn't know that Eru has actually succeeded. Adi easily imagined the face of Eru challenging the Land Emperor head-on. It seemed so natural. Ah yeah, that makes sense. Eru will probably do that. No need to worry. He can run away with those legs of his if things goes awry. The magic invented by Eru, called aero thrust, is surprisingly fast. Who can catch up with Eru, who was faster than wolves and rivals that of a bird? Even if the opponent was that mammoth demon beast, Eru can run away if he puts his mind to it. The two of them imagined that scene and laughed. As they predicted, Eru had hijacked Gael and was charging towards the behemoth. It was hard to tell if it was a blessing or a misfortune that the twins, on the shaking carriage, had no idea about this. The instructor on the carriage in front alerts the entire convoy. Clouds of dust can be seen in the direction they are heading, and they heard the sound of the horses' hooves in the distance. Everyone understood what was causing all that racket. A group of silhouette knights, the standard model, Cardata, was advancing in a column. All citizens of Fremavira Kingdom were familiar with these figures and understood why they were here. The garrison knights of Jantunan. The voice of the instructor on the leading carriage reached the carriages at the back. The students poked the head out of the carriages one by one, the face bright with excitement. This group was a scale larger than 2 platoons, consisting of roughly 90 silhouette knights. They are followed by the Maintenance and Supplies Corps. Most of Jantunan's military forces are here, the most they can muster one day after receiving the envoy from Balgari. Cardatas are the official mass-produced standard model, with rugged exterior. After experiencing many battles, it has a unique charm to it. The shoulder armor was decorated with the Fremavira Kingdom flag and the Jantunan city crest, displaying the pride they had in protecting this land. The Lahiala students are not uneasy anymore. No matter how mighty the demon beast was, the band of knights will defeat it. They had faith in the power and credibility of the knights. A sense of relief spreads among the knights who had discovered the carriage at the same time. Although they had set off as soon as they could, they had already mentally prepared themselves for the possibility that the entire Lahiala student body being massacred. From the looks of things, most of them made it out safely, and had brought with them valuable information about the current location of the behemoth. I see. The high school night runners. It included information on why the Lahiala students managed to evacuate safely. A lot of the knights are graduates of LightNovel Pilot Academy, and are moved by the honorable actions of the juniors and steeled themselves. Please rest assured. In order to protect our kingdom, and not let the sacrifices be in vain, we will crush the enemy. The Jantunan knights engraved this determination within the hearts. The morale grew stronger than before. The band of knights learned that the LightNovel students met the behemoth less than half a day ago, so the meeting with the behemoth is at hand. The tension of the knights grew sky high with each step they take. A red silhouette knight was sprinting wildly in the lush forest. Its speed was incredible, double that of a normal silhouette knight. Because Eru is controlling it with magic scripts, he is now in sync with the Magus engine. His thoughts are converted into scripts that are transmitted to the entire machine without any lags. The crystal tissue of the silhouette knight is being moved, its reaction speed is better than organic muscles, executing commands without delays. Gael now has double the reaction and movement speed of a standard silhouette knight. Gael maintains its peak performance as it runs, and heard the sound of howls in front. It was a mix of lightning explosion and raging winds. He will engage the behemoth in a few minutes. Eru's expression twisted with joy, showing unrestrained happiness as he begins his first battle in a silhouette knight. With a dull thud of metal against metal, the steel giant was knocked into the sky. It flew under the tremendous force and hits the ground hard, tumbling a few times. No one could spare the effort to confirm the safety of the pilot, but from the way it lands, the caved-in torso and the smashed arms, the pilot couldn't be unharmed. Damn. The high school night runners kept on fighting after the middle schoolers evacuated. It's not that they didn't want to run, they don't have the luxury of showing the back to the behemoth. The battle has raged on for some time. Compared to the fatigue showing on the pilots' faces, the behemoth lived up to its name of being a fortress, showing no signs of slowing down. There was also an overwhelming difference in strength between them. The discrepancies in endurance was surfacing with each passing second. Facing pressure that the knights at the borders failed to withstand, the high school pilot's machine fell one by one. There were only 3 left. The behemoth's tail swung towards Erlcumber, whose pilot Edgar was distracted by his comrade's demise. Edgar instinctively felt that he couldn't dodge the tail bent like a whip, and pushed the stance of Erlcumber as low as possible while swinging the shield on his left arm, parrying the blow. An incredible technique only Edgar, who was the elite in high school, can pull it off with the help of Erlcumber's excellent performance. But the shield was knocked away from his hand with just the tail's glancing blow. Erlcumber cautiously steadied its stance and pulled away from the behemoth. I lost my shield. This is bad, the situation is desperate. Even so, Erlcumber's damage is slight, the other 2 machines' mana pool and damage was at the limit and might cease any second now. Edgar couldn't shake off the foreboding sense of doom that flashed across his mind. His team couldn't hold on much longer and might be wiped out in 5 minutes. The behemoth didn't let up its attack, shooting out tornado breath again. The raging wind has a large area of effect, they could be pulled in if they didn't get further away. Please. Trandorches, move. Helvi realized that the tornado breath was aimed at her and screamed like a banshee as she tried to get away. Trandorches squeezed out its last ounce of strength, despite the accumulated fatigue and damage, but lost its balance because of the fierce air current. Helvi. Damn it, make it in time. Edgar roared, commanding Erlcumber to charge at the behemoth, who was in turn closing in on Helvi in order to distract it. He hung on to a glimmer of hope and fires his silhouette arms, arquebus. His full-power attack bounced off harmlessly against the armored shell, while the behemoth was still locked onto the silhouette knight before it. The running behemoth accelerates, closing in on Trandorches that was struggling to stand. Just as Helvi and even Edgar was prepared for the next victim to appear, ah ha 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 ha. Hugh ha ha ha. Found it, I am here. A red silhouette knight intrudes into the battlefield with arrogant laughter. The first thing he saw in the forest was the behemoth that was about to run over the robot lying on the ground. Gael increased its speed instantly, rushing to the behemoth's left flank like a scarlet bullet. It draws its sword and lunges without thinking, concentrating his power at a single point, aiming at one of the few weak points of the demon beast known as a fortress, which were its eyes. Gael not only moved at a speed beyond normal machines, but it was accurate and precise. Before Gael's blade reached the behemoth, it noticed the red figure. Because of that, it turned its head on reflex. The distance was too close to avoid. Gael's sword accurately caught up with the eyeball on the behemoth's head as it turned. The sword looks as if it was drawn in, stabbing at the eyeball and colliding with the shell. This was a pure coincidence. The shell that should be protecting the behemoth's eyes had a slit. That was a crack a certain knight inflicted at the cost of his life, half a month ago. If the behemoth didn't move and took the hit, this blow would probably be deflected by the shell covering it. But because it turned its head, the sword coincidentally pierced it from the gap. Gael used double the speed of a silhouette knight and attacked with a stab that focused its entire metallic body weight. The sword screeches and sparks flew because of the friction, as it penetrates the pupil of the giant beast. Eru thought his concentrated fatal attack will continue until it reached the hilt, but it snapped in two loudly and shattered. The surprise attack took out that eye, but it didn't reach the skull. The sword can't withstand the impact of the collision and fractures. Eru lets go of the sword when he realized that it broke, and leapt into the air to avoid hitting the behemoth head-on. Gael slips past the behemoth's charge with its massive body, spinning in mid-air, followed by two back somersaults as it lands, pulling away from the behemoth before stopping. The behemoth let out an angry howl that was never heard before. Blood sprays out profusely from its left eye socket, something it has never experienced permeate its body. The defense of the behemoth is top class among demon beast, and doesn't suffer injuries even when attacked. The pain of its eye being pierced and losing half its vision is a setback it has seldom experienced. The behemoth's remaining right eye is bloodshot as it searches for the accursed enemy that took its left eye. It lost interest in everything else, the only thing that matters is the red figure he last saw with its left eye. The high school night runners forgot that they were still on a battlefield as they stared at the scene before them, dumbfounded. They couldn't keep up with the development. They thought Gael abandoned them. But it was back with amazing speed, and broke through the invulnerable shell of the behemoth and blinded it. The giant beast before them was howling furiously as it took aim at the red machine. It was only concerned about Gael, ignoring Edgar and the others. Right, Helvey. Edgar rushed to the downed robot while the behemoth was distracted. The exhausted Trandorches was damaged and couldn't walk properly. But Edgar was relieved that Helvey was still alive. Edgar felt a tremor and took a stance with Erlcumber. He then realized that the behemoth was charging at Gael with an angry howl. The one-eye behemoth was even swifter than before, but Gael was more agile. Edgar questioned what he saw. The Gael he knew had never displayed such a performance before. He even doubts whether Dietrich was piloting it. But he didn't have the time to worry about that. If Gael can dodge the behemoth's fierce attacks, then that means Edgar has time to rescue his wounded comrades. Sorry Di, please hold him off for a while longer. They turned their back to the scarlet robot dancing with the giant beast, leaning on each other as they escaped. Edgar didn't know that Ernest was piloting Gael or what his situation was like. Inside Gael, Eru was gleefully staring at the holo monitor that was displaying the approaching colossal body. So this is a behemoth, a demon beast and battle. This is using a silhouette knight to battle. A ferocious smile appeared on his face. His surprise attack yielded results beyond his expectations. But the wounded and bloody giant beast harbors even stronger killing intent and charge at Eru. With majesty comparable to mountains, it closes in with murderous intent and power that twists the scenery. Even though the scene before him was enough to scare off veteran knights, Eru only felt intense joy. Come at me, come on, come on. piloting robots and fighting massive enemies. It was the dream of every robot nerd. Was there anyone who didn't wish for this? He had no intention of backing down, to move away from his happiness. Driven by the elation of his body, his chosen action was, come on, I'm going ahead. Gael bends slightly and ran at the behemoth while kicking up earth with each step, to close the gap in an instant. The moment before impact, Gael disappeared from the behemoth's vision. The behemoth, who lost an eye, didn't notice charging at Gael's previous position. Gael jumped a second before they collided, kicked off the behemoth's uneven armored shell and jumped over it. For the blinded behemoth, with its limited field of vision, catching Gael was mission impossible. Eru somersault in mid-air deftly as he thinks. Amazing. A shell with no gaps or weak points, invincible armor. It is too tough, even slashing at it with a running start won't help, magic attacks are useless, too. Alright, just use one of the cliché moves in destroying massive weapons. Eru mumbles nonsensically with heightened emotions, bending his knees smoothly to lessen the impact upon landing, and drew Gael's spare sword. The weak point of massive guys is usually the legs and joints. Let's start there. Gael uses his running momentum and stabs with terrifying accuracy at the back of the kneecaps, aiming for the gaps between the shells. This attack hit the muscles behind the shell, but it felt tougher than he imagined. Eru noticed it and pulled out the sword, retreating from the behemoth. It didn't go in. Other than the shell, is the rest of the body this tough too? Eru didn't expect the behemoth's physical boost to raise the endurance of its internal tissues. To support its massive weight, the behemoth must focus on strengthening its four limbs, which was obvious and a nightmare for its foe. The behemoth was agitated by the injury to its hind leg and turned around. Even a slight graze from the limbs of the turning behemoth will be enough to destroy Gael. Eru pulls further back and runs out of the behemoth's sight again as he reviews his previous attack. I didn't harm the joints just now, but it is more effective than hacking at the shell. Eru is wearing a happy, cute smile for some reason. He still stands a chance, but the execution is difficult, and needs tenacity and patience. Seems like this will be a long fight. I'm fine with that. I don't really hate that. Eru is smiling casually in the face of the raging beast and advances with the red robot. The battle is just beginning. He finally wakes. He sees a dark space in front. As his dull conscience clears, he feels pain from his uncomfortable body posture. Here is. He tries to resume a normal position in the cramped space and groans, but a special pressure pins him to the wall in front. He let out a muffled scream, the pressure clears his mind. What he felt was inertia, a familiar sensation for all night runners. But the inertia he felt was stronger than he remembered. This must be the pilot's seat of the Silhouette Knight. When he thought about this, Dietrich Kunitz recalls the last image from his memory. That's right, a short junior appear before him, and he hastily assumes a normal position and lifts his head from the back of the seat. The first thing he saw was the looming behemoth that filled the entire holo monitor. Gaia. You can't blame him for screaming like a headless chicken. He saw the close-up of the ferocious beast straight after waking up. The sudden scream surprised Ernesty and he almost lost control. Oh no. After he recovered from tripping, Gael slides to the left of the charging behemoth, evading it safely. Eru pulled away from the behemoth and glanced behind him before the behemoth gets ready to charge. Good morning, senpai. We are in a life and death situation, so please keep quiet. Dietrich's jaws drop after listening to his calm tone that contradicts its contents. The words sound logical, but he couldn't understand why he was back here when he should have ran far away. His head is full of questions. Are you insane? No, before that, why are you fighting? He had loads of questions to ask, but has to shut his mouth as Gael starts to run. The behemoth's furious face fills the whole holo monitor. The giant beast is emitting a much more murderous air compared to his prior escape. This was beyond the extent of chasing obstacles away, but raging killing intent. Gael is moving at a speed that was faster than anything the night runner Dietrich has experienced, dodging the massive beast's attack by a hair's breadth. After seeing several scenes of imminent death, Dietrich didn't care about appearance and was on the verge of tears. He suppressed his voice and gritted his teeth, enduring it with a pitiful face. He knows if he said anything that distracts Eru, Gael might really be done in. What is this? What's happening? Is this my punishment for running off alone? Although he didn't know, the other machines are either destroyed or had fallen back, there is only Gael battling alone here. It is ironic that the situation is the opposite of what happened when he fled. If Eru, who is piloting the machine, fights on, Dietrich couldn't escape again. Seems like I am fated to stay here. Why did he bring me along? He wants me to see the fight until the very end. He wants the man who abandoned his comrades to watch. Eru couldn't leave him behind even if he wanted to. Dietrich won't be able to guess the truth. The titanic beast didn't care about Dietrich's feeling and the battle between the two rages on. The behemoth used its devastating strength to shatter the earth, its tornado breath uproots the trees. A glancing blow from these will be enough to kill, but Gael that is piloted by the petite youth is evading them happily and is even counter-attacking the limbs of the beast. Dietrich lost his cool when he woke up, but has gathered himself now and was perplexed by another issue. Unbelievably, the young pilot is a match for the giant beast, although he is on the defensive. Because Dietrich was the pilot of Gael, he understands how amazing this is. The performance of this machine is average. The training robots at Lihiala Pilot Academy are second-rate equipment anyway. This was clear since the other Silhouette Knights piloted by high schoolers can't match the beast. The problem lies with this pilot. Dietrich also knows this short first year that shows up at pilot school occasionally. He would never have believed this small youth had such outstanding piloting skills. But since he is taking the beast on right now, Dietrich have to give in. Too amazing? No, that is an inadequate description. This is strange. But if we want to survive, I have let him fight. Dietrich fell into the chasm of despair once, but he saw hope in the scene before him. A sense of longing grows in the feeble youth who lost to himself. In Dietrich's eyes, Gael and Eru are fighting a steady battle. But in reality, they are not doing that well. There are two big and pressing issues. First is the mana pool of Gael. The maximum time a Silhouette Knight can fight at full strength is 1 hour under normal conditions. Any more than that and the mana supply will not be able to keep up with the usage rate, leading to diminished performance. It has been 2 hours since Gael started the battle. This means that it has kept up peak performance for double its time limit. This was thanks to Eru's delicate control and his grasp of the operating system. The optimization of the script lowers the mana consumption rate, limiting the usage of mana in tissues not in operation to conserve energy. Also, he is not running Gael at full power all the time, and this includes breaks for Gael to breath and restore mana. His actions looked intense at first sight, but he has been secretly minimizing its consumption rate once he decided to fight a long battle. But that was still not enough, he has exhausted half his mana reserve. If this goes on, he can optimistically hang on for about 2 more hours. Next will be the weapon's wear and tear. After attacking the behemoth repeatedly for 2 hours, Gael's blade is twisted and is full of cracks, making the attacks that causes minimal damage even less effective. There is also the magic armament, but Gael's chasm is not suitable for pinpoint attacks. Eru considered programming an override spell, but doing that while controlling the Silhouette Knight is too great of a burden, especially if it is a tactical level magic. He gave up on that, but his morale is still high, although lacking the means of attack made him feel helpless. If I knew this would happen, I would have armed myself with several swords like a porcupine. Even though he was upset, Eru persisted with his battle tactics. Or rather, he couldn't change it. Gael relies mainly on evasive maneuvers while looking for a chance to win. As the battle continued, even Dietrich noticed the frequency of counters was dropping. If they just want to survive, dodging will be fine, but they will lose in terms of endurance. If they planned to escape, they had to use this chance to attack the giant beast's legs and lower its mobility. And attacking is a possibility with Eru's piloting skills. But Eru has let a number of opportunities go. Why are you not countering? If you keep running like this, our chances of escaping will fall. Dietrich's anxiety rises as he can only watch. As a night runner, Dietrich knows silhouette knights can't fight for long. He chose a time when Eru has evaded an attack and asked, Hey, Ernesty, you have not been countering for a while, what's wrong? Eru was slightly surprised when the Dietrich, who has been quiet, suddenly spoke. But Eru explained the situation. The behemoth is too hard, the sword is tattered. The attacks are not damaging it. Dietrich stole a glance at the sword through the holo monitor. The blade was twisted badly and was totally blunt. Dietrich moans. Need to think. Find a weapon. We made it so far, we can't die now. He searched frantically from the scene displayed on the holo monitor for something that can be used as a weapon. Ernesty is piloting Gael, but there are things Dietrich can do as well. Dietrich is finally back on the battlefield by his own will, his mentality has changed drastically without him noticing, and his participation yielded great results. Eru was also scanning the surroundings as he fights, but he has to dodge the behemoth's charges, so he can't focus too much on the surroundings. That's why Dietrich was the one who noticed that. He shouted loudly when he discovered it, beside the fallen silhouette knight. Take its weapon. Eru took just a second to look at the spot Dietrich pointed at and saw a silhouette knight that had broken down. Eru comprehends Dietrich's intention, accelerating after evading the behemoth with a low posture almost hugging the ground. Eru charged forward and picked up a sword from the fallen robot. Since the high school pilots mainly used silhouette arms to attack, there was almost no damage on the sword. An invincible smile returns to Eru's face. Thank you, Senpai. I have been troubled because of my weapons. No need for thanks, just carry on fighting the behemoth. Eru faced the behemoth immediately and re-evaluate its status. Its legs are bleeding after numerous slashes, meaning the damage it took was not trivial. Okay, mana pool is less than 50%. If I don't take down a leg, it will probably catch up if we escape. Gael raised its new sword and began its counterattack. The behemoth was massive but it was bad with intrinsic movements, so its natural enemy is Gael, which uses speed and precision as its weapons. The behemoth used its endless stamina to rampage. Although it has been attacking non-stop, it has yet to land a single hit. Gael on the other hand is dealing damage consistently to the giant beast. The wounds on the behemoth's leg is significant. Dripping water can hollow a stone. With its eyes and limbs bleeding, even the fortress demon beast behemoth was slowing down. Dietrich was the one to notice again. Eru heard a shout from behind and scanned the surroundings quickly, and saw many silhouette knights. He won't miss that even if it is just a glance. These are cardators that are synonymous to silhouette knights in Fremavira Kingdom. They are spread out, surrounding Gael and the behemoth in layers. After seeing the machine model and the flying flags, they understood their identity. Cardator. That flag. It's Jantunan Garrison Knights. Reinforcements are here to rescue us. They are here. Sooner than I expected. I thought it will take a bit longer before I can escape and rendezvous with everyone. Eru quickly thought about his next course of action. Gael can still fight, but the mana pool was below 30%. It is at a critical juncture. Since the cavalry is here, there was no point in buying time, and let the knights take over and retreat. The firepower of Gael alone is not enough, the forces here should do. He was just stalling for time when facing the giant beast just now, but the time to defeat it has arrived. The gargantuan beast is not concerned with the situation around it, and continued to stubbornly chase Gael. Eru dodges easily, luring the behemoth to turn its back to the knights. He then slipped past the left side of the behemoth where it is blinded and dashed towards the formation of the knights. The band of knights probably understood Gael's intentions and aimed with the silhouette arms. The giant beast only had an eye for the detestable red figure, and was finally being led to the stage of the final battle. A short time before the knights arrived at the battlefield, several silhouette knights traveled deftly in the forest, instead of the stone pavement of Fremavira's highway. They are the scouts of the Jantunan garrison knights. The mission is to reconnaissance the status of the behemoth before the main party arrives. After bashing into the forest from the highway, they found the density of the forest to be very high. Compared to using carriages and traveling by the highway, the team travels much faster by cutting through the forest. The behemoth is much closer to the highway than the position reported by the students, so the scouts completed the mission and reported back in no time. Is that so? That is right ahead of us. The behemoth not taking the highway is a silver lining. Philip Halligan comments, after listening to the scouts' report. He was prepared to fight the behemoth on the highway if the situation calls for it, but that wasn't necessary. But his face turned stiff as he listened to the next report. We have linked up with 3 of the training robots, there is still one more engaged in battle. The high schoolers' silhouette knights retreated from battle because of Gael's intrusion made it to the highway, and was being protected by the garrison knights. Trandorches and another machine were critically damaged, and were sent to the maintenance crew at the back for major overhaul. The remaining Ulcumber suffers minor damage and joined the fighting ranks after receiving simple repairs. The robot still in battle was Gael. When the scouts saw the Scarlet Knight, it was attacking with a fearsome might. The scouts did not know how to report this, so they just gave the position of the beast and the fact that a machine was engaging it. Philip and Gottfried plans the operation based on the gathered intelligence and relays the orders to all units. The plan was as follows: they will spread out by squad level, 9 machines, around the target in a semicircle. From the intelligence of the students who fought it, it is judged that close-quarter combat with the giant beast is very dangerous, so they will be using silhouette arms and attacking in waves from a distance to damage the behemoth. They have also drawn up contingencies for the behemoth's charging and tornado breaths. They are expecting casualties, so the worst scenario will be the targeted squad will act as bait and stop the behemoth's movement, while the others move in for the kill. The knights move into the forest with the resolve to risk death in battle. The howl of the mammoth beast makes the forest tremble. As the knights move into position, the beast keeps turning in circles at the same spot, rampaging painfully. The knights were confused by this and were dumbfounded when they saw the reason. They saw a red silhouette knight moving at incredible speeds as the giant beast chased it with blood gushing out of an eye and howls of rage. What is that? The beast can shatter the silhouette knight with one blow, but the Scarlet machine was using its superior speed to toy with it. Even the commander with his elite skills doubted whether he can match that speed. Everyone was impressed and sighs at this display. They understand that the giant beast is staying in place because it is persistently chasing the Scarlet machine. It was too focused on the enemy before it and lost track of its surroundings. This is a great chance for the knights. Suddenly, the red robot notices the knights and stops. In the next instance, it lures the behemoth to turn its back to the knights and slips past the flank of the beast towards the knights. Philip grasped its intention and commands his entire force, Scarlet Knight. Thank you. Don't let this chance slip away. Everyone, ready your culverin. Receiving the command from Philip, who lifted his sword, the Cardatus readies its magic armament, culverin. Their objective is to attack in unison with magic, using the numbers to overwhelm the enemy. The red machine did not slow down, slipping to the back of the formation. Philip swings his sword down as it passed through the last of the ranks. All units, fire. The knights anticipated this signal and shot out flames on cue at the behemoth with the culverins. The high-pitched sound reverberated as fire trails flashed through the sky towards the center of the semicircle, raining down on the mountain-sized monster. Countless flaming lance pierced the behemoth, who was engrossed with the Scarlet Knight. The override spell flaming lance exploded in columns of flames like a lotus within the forest. The tongues of flame engulfed the entire beast. The fire was so big that they couldn't see what was happening. Even so, the knights did not slow down the persistent attack. Gael, who made it past the knights, stopped at the rear of the formation to rest his machine and recover its mana pool. The machine appears to be fatigued after making through a fierce battle. The ether reactor churns noisily as it runs at full speed. That's great. Well done. How's that? Damn demon beast, this is the power of the garrison knights. Ha ha ha. Eru frowns when he heard the maniacal laughter of Dietrich behind him. Eru didn't relax as he watched the hellish flame before him. The culverins kept up its attack and the scale of the fire was increasing gradually, determined to burn everything inside it. Even the behemoth, who took pride in its defenses, won't be able to escape unscathed from this attack. But it is not an opponent that can be dealt with so simply. It was impossible for the situation to go as Eru hoped, and the space that is burning is changing. The fire that is burning fiercely is swirling in the form of a whirlpool. No, it was not just the flame that is swirling, but the air current around it was sucking the flames in, turning it into a tornado of fire. The knights sensed that something was wrong and adopted a defensive stance, but kept up their attack. The tornado flame finally evolved. The next second, it turns into a slithering burning snake and whips at the knights. What is that? The burning snake spits at the knights as it struggles. The flame that was shot out by the knights was dispersed into the surroundings. Fortunately, the knights kept the distance when they attacked, so the tornado breath was not fatal. Although they knew about the existence of the tornado breath, they didn't expect the behemoth to use it inside that fiery pit, stunning the knight and disrupting the formation. With the formation falling apart, the attack from the culverins slowed down. The behemoth realized this and kicked at the remaining fire and leaped out of the fire pit. After its shell was baked in hellish flames that can melt steel, it is burning hot and several wounds can be seen on the giant beast. The injuries on its limbs sustained from Gaele's slashes are burnt badly after the baptism by fire. On the whole, the colossal beast suffered serious damage. The movement of the behemoth has also slowed significantly, but it is still known as an extraordinarily tough beast with absurd endurance. The charge of the beast was enough to make the knights who are reforming scatter. The behemoth's massive body is in the middle of the reforming group. The movement of the knights are slow because they are in the midst of forming ranks, making things worse. A number of machines was knocked away during the giant beast's advance. The robots that fell down were mercilessly trampled into lumps of metal. Some of them tried to engage the behemoth. The shell that was weakened by the heat can be sliced by the sword, but the blade twists and shatters before it reaches the interior. Even wounded, the close-quarters battle between the beast and the silhouette knights are hopelessly one-sided. A squad of knights are forced into a corner. Although the knights are prepared to sacrifice their lives, they are unable to attack in a position that will hit their allies. The occasional magic attack stops and their ace showed itself. Squad 2, 4 and 8, ready the hammer. Phillips in his command machine, Swordwort, swings his sword. His instruction gives a sense of purpose to the battle. The knights were prepared to die in this battle, and with the battle turning into a melee fight, they restrained the beast's movement and showed their ace in the hole. The silhouette knights carrying a massive weapon and starts running to either flanks of the behemoth. They are moving the hard-crust bunker that requires 4 silhouette knights to use. Simply put, it is just a giant lump of steel in the shape of a stake. As shown from its name, the battering ram that requires 4 silhouette knights to move can easily destroy a siege wall. The ace they prepared for the demon beast with the reputation of a fortress. The battering ram is a powerful weapon, but it has the weakness of being slow and heavy. It is a type of weapon that changes mass into destructive force, so it requires 4 silhouette knights to wield. It is also big in size, so it is a hassle to deploy or withdraw with it. To hit the demon beast, they need to seal its movement. That is why the knights are deploying their ace when the giant beast stopped its advance. The problem with the battering ram has been briefed to all knight units, including the squad that was engaging the behemoth. They knew they couldn't last for long, but they refused to back down, facing the behemoth to stop its movements. The cardators that are charging with the battering ram can see this scene clearly. The knight runners in the seats grip the control sticks so tightly that it creaks. They step on the pedals with all the might, wanting to crash into the behemoth immediately. This is the battle where they are ready to sacrifice their lives. Even so, the wrath towards the enemy that massacred their allies burns on. The battering ram squad roars as they charge in response to the sacrifices of their allies. The air intake valve plays a high-pitched screech. The cardator charge at the maximum speed. As they close in towards the beast, they are covered in the shadow of the mountain-like beast. The first battering ram reached the behemoth's side. This was not a precision weapon, so they used the momentum to aim at the biggest target, which is the flank, and rams it in. The weight that requires 4 silhouette knights to move has amazing destructive power. The shell being cooked in flames, causing it to soften, might play a part. The battering ram pierced cleanly through the shell of the behemoth into its stomach. The stake seems to shake in that moment. The behemoth's colossal body starts to move and it howls painfully, louder than when it lost its eye. Its howl to the sky makes the ground tremble and a massive amount of blood gushes out from its stomach wound. Great. The hard crust bunker is effective. Use this chance to attack and kill it. Cheers erupt among the knights. They know the battering ram is difficult to use, but its power can hurt a battalion-level demon beast. There are 2 more teams with battering rams and they are closing in on the giant beast. The beast is still writhing in pain, not noticing their advance. The 2 teams are aiming for the head and the other flank respectively. If they hit these 2 places, it will be fatal even for a fortress demon beast. Most of the knights are convinced of the victory. The battering ram team that is shouldering the entire army's hope is right before its target. The moaning and dazed behemoth suddenly looks downwards. All the knights and Eru didn't know what this means and was perplexed. The team that is charging with the battering ram didn't notice the behemoth shoots a tornado breath at the ground. The fierce wind this close to the ground digs up the earth and the flying debris in this confined space explodes. The battering ram team was unable to evade this. The team aiming for the head was hit by flying boulders and smashed into smithereens. Amazingly, the behemoth uses its stomach to withstand the explosion and the impact of the tornado and stood up with this momentum. All the knights that were maintaining the encirclement of the behemoth stared at the images on the holo monitor in awe. The 80-meter-long behemoth had incredible weight, and its foreleg is completely off the ground as it stands. This bizarre situation made everyone's reaction slower by a beat. Oh no! Danger, get away. The team aiming for the stomach knew something was awry before Philip shouted and attempts to dodge. But they are carrying the heavy battering ram with them and had been charging at full speed. Even if they wanted to retreat, they couldn't stop their accelerating machine in time. The behemoth's massive body fell with the pull of gravity right on top of them. The destructive force of the gargantuan demon beast's weight was beyond that of the battering ram. It caused a small earthquake when it landed, shattering the ground and shooting debris like a shotgun to the surroundings. The dust flew sky high, covering the beast's entire body. The battering ram team that didn't get away in time was decimated, the ram was flattened and the silhouette knights were beyond recognition. This attack was too rash, and the behemoth that used it was hurt too. More blood flows out from its gaping wounds, and several cracks appears on its shell. It was not obvious, but the attack that penetrates its physical boast injured some of its internal organs. The behemoth was also desperate. But the Knights' casualties were more severe. Including the squad that was attacked in the beginning, they had lost 40% of the forces, and the flying boulders caused medium damage of another 20%. And losing their ace seriously hurt the Knights' morale. The attack they placed the hopes on was negated. This impacted the psyche deeply. Anxiety higher than before seizes the Knights. The culverin held by the car data are shaking. The movement of the Knight runners were unconsciously transmitted to the machine. Not only the giant beast's power, but even its existence brings pressure that corrodes the heart. Gael watches the string of attacks from the rear of the Knights. Dietrich was trembling inside the machine. Even the special attack that sacrifices part of the Knights was negated in front of the beast's strength. Can they really take it down? The generous amount of fighting spirit in his heart recedes instantly. The damage to the behemoth is significant, but seeing the power he had absolute faith in failing, shook his heart. Dietrich couldn't make collected judgment. The thing that returns Dietrich back to normal is the angry growl from the seat in front of him. Unforgivable. Dietrich could only see the silver hair of Ernesty sitting in the seat, but he can understand the abnormal atmosphere emitting from Aru's body. You dare destroy robots before my eyes. The only thing that is permitted to destroy robots is other robots. Eru mumbles reasons unfathomable to Dietrich as he stands Gael up. Although he has a faint smile, his blue eyes differed from its usual shine, burning like a devil. As if it is channeling Aru's wrath, Gael's air intake valve screeches louder. The mana flows through all the crystal tissue in the body encased in armor is full of power. Mana pool is over 50%, the sword in its hand is serviceable and the machine is undamaged. The Scarlet Knight took a step forward. Eru, who has become a vengeful spirit, returns to battle. The red silhouette Knight charges at the giant beast. The cry of despair from Aru's passenger can be heard along the way. The Land Emperor emerged slowly from the thick dust. Despite its body being covered in wounds, it can still move, displaying its amazing endurance. Battalion-level demon beasts are truly impressive. On close observation, it is on its last legs. But the Knights with the devastated morale lost the will to fight when they see the behemoth is still moving. They shoot the culverin in response, but the scattered efforts are ineffective. It can't even break through the weakened shell. The encirclement of the Knights that was sealing the behemoth's movement also fell apart. Commander Philip felt a strong sense of danger from the sight before him. He has issued numerous orders, but it is not easy to build up lost morale and he is growing anxious. Suddenly, a scarlet wind pierced through the loose encirclement. The red silhouette Knight was prominent among the earth-colored cardators. It made a beeline for the behemoth before anyone could react. This is impossible. We are doomed, it can't be done, the Knights are here, there is no escape. Eru, who is piloting Gael, didn't even look at the Knights, and Dietrich's nonsensical scream didn't reach their ears. Aru's deep blue eyes locked onto the behemoth. Leaving the Knights out of his mind, Eru closes in on the behemoth. Even though the behemoth was heavily wounded, it howled when the red figure in its memory appeared. It ignores the gushing blood and tattered shell and moves its limbs. The gap between them disappears. The speedier Gael has the advantage. With suffering many cracks and fractures from the previous fight, the behemoth's defense is full of holes. The Scarlet machine turns into a whirlwind, slashing repeatedly at the behemoth with its speed. The sword cuts accurately through a fissure, causing sparks and screeching noise as the shell cracks and fell to the ground. Sword attacks are effective. This means the enemy is at its limit. Gael glides around and slashes, turns back and pounces at the behemoth again, turning his evasive tactics to offense. These two have traded the position. The Knights were shocked by the scene before them. In their eyes, Gael is a machine piloted by a Lihiala Pilot Academy student. A student younger than the knights is standing up to the giant beast without fear and attacking it. At a glance, it seems like foolish bravery, but this is why it has a motivational effect that fires up the hearts of the knights. All units, assume encircle formation. Form new ranks. Renew the attack. The knights felt shame from losing heart before the demon beast's might and move with renewed conviction. The units with restored morale formed up quickly and encircled the behemoth. Each squad took note of the Scarlet Machine's position and started magic attack support, restraining the behemoth's movement and damaging it. The sword of the Scarlet Knight peeled off the shell of the beast, the culverin pierced the behemoth's legs. The attack of the giant beast is sealed and it becomes a static target board. The table has been turned and the behemoth was on the verge of defeat. This bolsters the morale of the knights and Gael moves freely. The colossal beast finally reached its limit, its shell is dropping off from the damages and its blood turns the ground into marsh. Anyone can tell the beast has lost its ability to resist. But something unexpected happened. A sudden pressure assaults Eru and Dietrich out of nowhere. As Gael was turning its body to evade, the strength in one leg disappears and it leans heavily to one side. A strong force pushes the Scarlet Knight to the ground and Gael's red armor was twisted and peels off, scattering in mid-air. What happened? Eru continued to control Gael in a panic, rolling backwards and kicking off the ground with all its might. Gael finally steadies its posture with one knee on the ground. The behemoth didn't hit us, so why are we hurt? Eru shifts the machine's head to scan the status of the legs, finding the joints stiff and sees shards of crystal tissue falling out from the gaps in the armor. Eru finally understood the situation after seeing this. This was not caused by attacks. Eru made intrinsic control possible with his full control piloting. But his high output demands made Gael break under the heavy burden. This long battle has also exceeded the operation time of a normal silhouette knight, which adds to the stress, damaging the legs which took the brunt of the burden. Living beings will be alerted through pain stimulus. But silhouette knights are robots without the function of reporting feedback of abnormalities. You will only know when it exceeds the limit and suffers damage. Eru frowns deeply. Gael holds the advantage because of its excellent mobility. But it can't fight on with its legs busted. Eru can only abandon the machine and run for it. There is not much time left for him to worry about this. The behemoth is rushing at the hated red machine as usual. The culverins fired by the knights rain down on the behemoth as they try to save the Scarlet Machine that suddenly kneeled down, but it didn't stop the giant beast. The behemoth's remaining right eye is bloodshot and full of hatred, an angry howl came from its mouth. The shattered shell and flowing blood didn't even faze it, the demon beast charged with the conviction to decimate everything. Its speed was much slower, but it is a death sentence for the immobile Gael. To break down with this timing. It's a pity, but I have to escape. With his capabilities, Eru can get out of the giant beast's range once he abandons the machine. That's right, if it is just me. Eru can do it, but Dietrich behind him can't. Eru releases the harness and stares at the behemoth on the holo monitor. There is no time left, the charge will shatter Gael. Eru's thinking speed reached its peak. It is not good for my conscience to leave Senpai here. But it is not easy to survive this. He desperately went through all sorts of possibilities. What Ernesty can do, what Dietrich can do and what Gael can do. There is a way, but it is a gamble. There is only one chance, the chips are our lives. But to die with a robot is an acceptable way to go out with a bang. That's the best a robot nerd can hope for. Eru has no hesitation in choosing this insane option. To risk his life and fight the giant beast. Senpai, can you hear me? Eru's calmness doesn't match the situation before them. Will Dietrich sitting at the back listen? He is already in despair over the fate, mumbling as he pants. He is not acting normal. If you hear me, please switch with me and take over the controls. Eru's tone is the same, but the strange aura in his voice made Dietrich tremble in fear. Eru ignores him, pulling Winchester and the silver nerves to the front, almost hitting the holo monitor, leaving the empty seat. It's hopeless. What can I do by piloting? It doesn't matter. Sit on the chair now if you want to live. Dietrich reacts to the words, if you want to live. He is on the verge of breaking down, but he still slides into the seat. Shit. Shit. What are we doing? What can we do? I will only say this once, so listen carefully. First, part of the silver nerve was pulled along with the Winchester, but several of them are still connected to the control stick. It can still be operated normally. Once he confirms Dietrich is holding the control stick, Eru release his control from the Magus engine's domain. The behemoth is right in front of them. It is critically wounded with nowhere to run, but its massive body is still imposing, filling their entire field of vision. Eru takes a deep breath and stares at the figure in the holo monitor and concentrates. He pushed his unique skill, the processing speed that can fully control a silhouette knight, to the limit and programs a large-scale script. It's an override spell in scale, similar to those used by silhouette knights but larger. He has a bigger mana pool than others as he has trained non-stop since childhood. But that is the standard for humans, and not enough to execute tactical-level spells. Even if he can process and construct the script, he can't use tactical-level magic. But he is sitting on a large supply of mana right now. That's right, the mana from Gael. Silhouette knights can't construct magic alone. Eru didn't have the mana for tactical-level spells. But they can cover each other's weakness, and Eru is executing this never-seen-before plan. Tilde tilde tilde. Tilde. Dietrich screams without realizing. Fear made him stiff, but Dietrich believes the young boy before him and acts. Eru focuses on the processing, creating a large and powerful spell to his limit. The behemoth's head is like a protruding boulder, closing in on Gael to smash it. The distance is close enough to make out the details on the behemoth's skin. Everything that follows happens in an instant. Gael extends its arms as if to hug Behemoth and creates an air bullet but did not fire it out, constructing an airbag. Eru uses the magic he conjured to decelerate when moving at high speed, air suspension, and enlarged it to the tactical level. The air cushion he made collides with the impact of the demon beast's charge. The compressed air was squeezed even tighter from the collision. A force that is still tremendous after hitting the airbag pushes at Gael. The pressure deforms the armor and blows away the crystal shards. Now, jump back. Eru opens his eyes and shouts. He heard a reaction from Dietrich. Dietrich didn't think about the content of the instructions and reacted on reflex, extending his legs and pushing down hard on the pedal. Gael's leg is broken and can't walk, but the crystal tissues that are still working executes the command faithfully and expends all its energy. The behemoth has broken through the air cushion and is about to pierce the Scarlet Knight. Gael leaps back recklessly at this moment. The crystal tissues in the legs snap completely, but it has completed its task. It's not over. Hang on. Hard skin. Eru's operation is not over. He casted an armor-hardening spell on Gael's front armor. At this moment, the behemoth's head touches Gael and the hit lands, weakening the impact with air cushion, minimizing the force by jumping back and defending with hardening magic. Even with this, it didn't negate the force of the blow as the armor dents and the pieces surrounding it breaks and flies off. The holo monitor in front of the pilot's seat shatters, making Eru gasp. It is not enough after doing all this. All his effort was negated, making him think about giving up. But a small blessing aided him. The training machine used by the Lihiala Pilot Academy places its priority on pilot safety, so the torso armor is made thicker. The front armor reinforced by Eru's magic stays true to this priority, denting heavily but still was able to withstand the behemoth's strike, protecting its passengers completely. Anyone would think the red machine was lost, but Gael looks like it is hugging the head of the behemoth, still retaining its humanoid shape. The behemoth was baffled by the knight that didn't fall apart from its charge. The attack still carries on, the behemoth advances and pushes Gael along. If we make it through, the time to strike back is here. Eru grabs the control stick and moves Gael's body. He only moves the robot's right wrist and lifts it up and punches at the behemoth's head. No matter how weak the shell is, the body of the giant beast will not be damaged by bare hands. But the arm is not aiming for the shell, but the left eye socket. The broken half of a sword is stuck in there. Eru grabs the broken sword and activated all the remaining mana in Gael's crystal tissue. He overrides all safety limiters, emptying all mana reserves, using all his processing power to construct the largest spell. Checkmate. After uttering this phrase softly, the largest scale lightning the world has ever seen channels through Gael's arm into the broken sword, striking the behemoth's head directly. The behemoth is a living being and has a brain in its head. The lightning through the eye socket is conducted through the optical nerves and the blood vessels, hitting the brain directly. The large current ravaged the brain of the behemoth, frying the interior components. Even the giant beast couldn't take it when its brain, which is the control hub of living things, burn. The Land Emperor finally took its last breath. The electric current continues to burn the nerves, making the behemoth spasm and jerk. That flings off Gael that was hugging the head onto the ground. Gael has exhausted its mana pool, so it can't even harden its structure, breaking into pieces upon impact with the ground. The giant beast collapsed to the ground slowly. Death comes to the powerful beast that rampaged. The ending was brutal and sudden, everyone was silent. When they comprehended that the demon beast will not move again, joy spreads among the knights in waves. It didn't take long for them to cheer in victory. It was dangerous till the very end, any mistake and we would have turned into mincemeat. The decimated Gael was in a pitiful state. The limbs had fallen off, the inner skeleton was breaking apart with the connection magic gone. Every piece of the armor was battered and there were only bits of red paint left. The pilot's seat was also shaken up, but Eru casted air suspension with his own mana to absorb the impact safely. Dietrich was almost crushed to death from the pilot's seat's inertia, but that was better than becoming mincemeat for real. Although this was a plan that might kill them along with the behemoth, Eru was relieved to have survived. He let out a long sigh and showed a gloomy expression. In pieces. Gael is in pieces. Eru ignores the unconscious Dietrich whose pupil had turned up and shakes his head, worrying about the wrong priorities. I can't stay depressed. Gael, I will fix you, please wait for me. Eru made a strange resolution and left the half-destroyed cockpit. Knights and Magic Volume 1 Chapter 9, chapters list the sound of tambour cracking can be heard repeatedly. The source is the mountain of mass, the carcass of the Land Emperor. When the behemoth died, the mana supply powering the physical boost magic stopped. The massive body over 80 meters in length couldn't withstand its own weight and collapsed on itself. The shell armor that suffered countless cracks during the course of battle crumbles, the struts holding the body up crumbles one by one, the height falls slowly. The lower half of its body that supports the heavier way is in shambles. The Jantunan garrison knights cheers as the giant beast crumbles further, shooting the silhouette arms into the air with pride. But the knights suffered serious casualties. That's why the ones who survived have to sing the victory song loudly as a tribute to those who fell in battle. Some distance from the knights, 3 silhouette knights are advancing. Among the band of Cardata knights, these 3 has a different appearance and stands out from the crowd. One is the command silhouette knight, Swordwort, piloted by the commander Philip. Compared to the Cardatas that focus on practicality, it has a prominent regal appearance and is covered in plate armor. Besides him is the vice commander's Carderia, a Cardata that has been reinforced. Behind them is the training machine from Lihiala Pilot Academy, Erlcumber. Its appearance is crude, but it is covered in pure white armor, giving it a different aesthetic compared to Cardata. They walked past the behemoth that is still crumbling and approached the target. The closer they got, the clearer the pieces with red paint. Scattered around here were the remains of the silhouette Knight Gael. The first thing Philip, who was leading the way, saw was Gael's right arm. Its skeletal structure was broken and it was bent out of shape. The trio glanced at it and continued without a word, finally reaching the main objective. The torso without its head and limbs, the armor was in shambles, the crystal tissue has been utterly destroyed. The armor protecting the chest cavity has caved in, the whole torso is misshapen. The strong frontal armor was a twisted lump, showing how strong the impact was. I did think it will be like this. From the looks of things, the Night Runner inside. It's hopeless. No one made a sound, thinking about the same thing. They had some hope, but if the impact shatters the torso, it is impossible for the pilot to survive. Philip and Gottfried stares silently at the holo monitor. The Scarlet Knight from Lihiala Pilot Academy fought the behemoth to the last breath to protect its juniors. Compared to the knights who were on the verge of collapse, it was on the very front lines. It battled the giant beast like a burning torch of courage, taking down the behemoth with its life. Philip wondered what the pilot was like. The pilot should be a student, but his future is immeasurable. He had the skills to take down a behemoth, the virtuous attitudes to risk his life for others, and the indomitable spirit to overcome the odds. He possessed the three characteristics a knight should have. Philip had not conversed with him before, but Philip gives a silent prayer for the hero who sacrificed himself honorably. Erlcumber moved ahead and kneels beside Gael. Erlcumber's front armor opens with the sound of compressed air jetting out. Edgar stands on the armor, silently looking at the remains for a while before saying, "Die. I am late, but I still want to apologize. Back then, I thought you abandoned us and escaped." Unlike his calm tone, Edgar's expression was twisted with regret. "I lost all respect for you at that moment. But I empathize with you too. The scenario was too dire then. I told myself, I won't work with us in this situation. But you came back." Edgar's clenched fists are trembling. "And so sorry, Dietrich. I don't know why you were hiding your real strength. Even so, you sacrificed yourself to save us." Edgar's monologue was interrupted by an explosion. Shortly after, Gael's chest armor flew into the sky before him. The chest armor flew and made an arc through the sky and rolls loudly when it lands. The three robots followed the movement of the chest armor that blasted off, and looked back at the remains by the feet. A short figure climbs out from the cockpit as they watched in awe. The front armor couldn't open because it was bent out of shape. That took some effort to get out. What's wrong, everyone? Jantunen was under high alert because the deployment of the entire garrison knights, but the gates are fully open to welcome the return of the knights. The victorious garrison knights returns in an orderly fashion, advancing slowly on the main street. News of the behemoth's invasion has spread throughout the whole kingdom with the deployment of the knights. The citizens who were trembling from fear cheered with reckless abandon for those who had returned safely. Their excitement matches that of winning a war, and in reality, defeating a behemoth successfully has more value than winning a war. Something followed the advance of the parade and the crowd was silenced when it enters the gate. That was the head of the demon beast, which was much larger than a silhouette knight. A carriage ferries the intimidating head. Even the citizens that didn't see it move knows it's a threat. The silence spreads, and suddenly explodes in cheers twice as loud. Everyone is singing the exploit of the knights, deepening the respect for the guardian garrison knights. Jantunen's parade reached its climax at this point. Some distance away from the main street, a quiet cafe that is isolated from the bustle of the city. Most of the citizens were gathered around the main street, leaving the cafe empty. There are just a few youths patronizing the shop. They are people related to this incident: Edgar, Stefania, Archard, Adeltrude and Ernestine. "Really? You are too reckless." Edgar sighs and lowers the teacup in his hand. He is saying this on behalf of everyone present. He couldn't help himself from commenting after hearing Eru casually describe his actions during the Land Emperor incident. This makes me sympathize with the victim, who was dragged in, die. After hacking into the Magus engine, Eru exerts full control over the machine and fought. Just listening to this is enough to make anyone with common sense faint after screaming. The more detailed Eru's explanation, the more troubled Edgar becomes. Stefania's eyes widen and her surprise is evident. Chid and Adi are stunned, but accepts it since it is Eru. The twins looked at each other and said, "See, he hijacked a silhouette knight as expected." "You too? What do you mean by expected?" "Although you are right." Eru looks unhappy, but averts his eyes guiltily when the twins glares back. Apart from Eru, Edgar is the only one with experience piloting silhouette knights. That's why he was shocked after listening to Eru, but was convinced. From what he remembered, Gaiale's performance was not that outstanding. If Eru didn't hack in, it wouldn't have been that powerful. But even with the facts right before him, Edgar just shakes his head. He suddenly thought of something. "Ernesty, if I didn't run, what would you have planned to do?" "Nothing. I just would have went with the flow back then, and would probably have boarded the carriage and escaped." Edgar's face sours. What would have happened if Gael didn't join the fray? Edgar won't be sitting here in that case, and the knight's casualties would probably double. Not only that, the behemoth might not be defeated. Without question, a Medal of Honor should be awarded to the petite youth in front of Edgar, but rewarding his outstanding performance was an issue because of Eru's position. Edgar bit his lip and goes into the main topic. The surviving high school pilots, will be going to Kankanen for an awards ceremony. Edgar felt conflicted even though he was talking about such a glorious event. The Jantunan Garrison Knights will send representatives as well, probably Sir Halogen and a few others. This involves a battalion-level demon beast invasion, a story that is worthy to be spread within the nation, no, to all nations. They say there will be a grand ceremony. You are right, congratulations. But you seem unhappy about it. The existence of the Scarlet Knight will be covered up for this incident. This means Ernesty's achievements will not be stated. Stefania wears an apologetic expression and looks at the tea beside her hand. Chid and Adi understands the meaning of these words after a while and glares at Edgar. Only Eru seems unaffected and nods. "I see. If I was a member of the Knights or an official high schooler, there wouldn't be any problems. Hey, things would have been serious if Eru wasn't there. Why can't he receive commendations?" Chid stands up in protest. Stefania stops him with a look, sighs and explains, "Calm down. If a normal knight performs so outstandingly, they will be promoted or commended. For high schoolers, they will be enlisted as an official knight. But we can't promote Eru that way. Why? Eru is obviously stronger than those run-of-the-mill knights. Being a knight means he has to join a band of knights. He can be a member with his exceptional power, but there are some who will be willing to work with a 12-year-old. Working under an organization means Eru can't be willful in his actions. We can work something out if he is an adult. If they pass over the knights and grant honors to a 12-year-old, the knights will look bad. The honor of the knights is the honor of the kingdom, no one wants that to happen." Eru tilts his head and asks with a smile, "I understand. Senpai are here to convince me." The expression of Edgar and Stefania stiffens. Eru didn't say much about their expression and continues, "Let's forget about this incident. I am satisfied with piloting an actual silhouette knight. Instead of asking shamelessly for rewards, doing nothing is much more relaxing. Besides, I was the one who butted in without permission. I don't want to be manipulated by others because of this incident." Stefania nods her head in agreement. "That won't happen, I guarantee, in the name of the Surati family." "That's right, I will remind Sir Halogen." Eru nods after receiving the promises. Unlike Eru, CHID and AD are unable to accept this, asking with a moan, Eru, is this really okay? Yeah, Eru's dream is to be a knight and pilot Silhouette Knights, correct? Are you giving in now? This is an exceptional case. I don't plan to demand for any rewards. Seeing Eru consoling the unhappy twins, Edgar and Stefania breathe a sigh of relief. Gael and Thea Behemoth were both destroyed in the battle, a testament to the desperate situation Eru was in. Not giving any reward to Eru doesn't sit well with them either. On the other hand, they understand the Order of Knights won't be able to handle Eru's exceptional case well. They volunteered to convince Eru of the Knight's dilemma in order to avoid using official orders to pressure Eru. They need not worry about Eru protesting violently, but the contents of the speech were filled with illogical reasonings, so they were prepared for the talks to be stalled. They felt grateful for Eru's generous disposition. Phew, that was close. I barged ahead without thinking too much. There will be tons of trouble if I make the Knights lose face. Giving me a way to reject the commendation cordially was a big help. Eru, who appears to be drinking tea calmly, was breaking out in cold sweat. To be honest, he was troubled over how to settle things on his end. It was hard for Eru to do anything in his position. The other party proposing a peaceful resolution made Eru relieved. I did have a great time piloting. I even got to see the Magus Engine's script. That is enough for a reward. And the Knights owe me a favor too. Being too forceful will blow matters up, just let them bask in the glory. Also, it will be good if I can build a close relationship with the Knights and the people present. Eru finished his tea happily as he thought about how to resolve the matter. The atmosphere was peaceful after ending the tense topic. The sound of cheers was continuing all this while. They chatted casually in the meantime. His consciousness recovers slowly. His first thing he feels is a question. What happened that time? The demon beast. He felt a sharp pain next from all over his body, stimulating his mind and waking him up. Ugu. Dietrich groans from the pain of his protesting body and opens his eyes. The first thing he sees is a wooden ceiling. He turns his head and observes a white drape. He was still confused, but he understands the situation before him. He was warded in a hospital-like facility, which means he is safe. This means the battle was won. He shivered when he remembered the giant beast. From the situation at that time, it was impossible to save him without getting rid of the beast. Dietrich deduced from this that the battle ended somehow, and was a success since he is alive. Ara, you're awake. Dietrich relaxed after deducting the crisis has ended, and more importantly, he is safe. As he lies down groggily, a voice came from his side. This is Jantunen Pilot's infirmary. You have lost consciousness for over a day after the battle. Dietrich turns his head with his eyes wide open. It's not because of the content of the speech, but the person who is saying it. Don't worry, you have many bruises, but no serious injuries. You are young and will heal up in no time. His white clothes almost bursting from his muscular body, and his hair was crew cut. His feet were a shoulder width apart, but his knees were clamped together. He is speaking in a feminine way despite having a deep voice. This was a man. A scream erupts suddenly and fills the entire infirmary. A convoy comprising of carriages and Silhouette Knights are traveling along the gravel road leading from Jantunen to the capital, Fremavira Highway. Inside the carriage are students from Lihiala Pilot Academy's knighthood faculty. The Silhouette Knights are escorts from Jantunen Garrison Knights. The Knights were headed towards the capital for the award ceremony and were acting as escorts since they are heading in the same direction. There is a person sitting on the top of a carriage. That person is basking in the sun, watching the long convoy line under the warm sun. At the end of the line was a wagon filled with recovered Silhouette parts. The machine that was wrecked by the behemoth was turned into junk, but the most valuable torso was retrieved. The damage was assessed. If the Magus engine and ether reactor known as the heart was fine, it will be easier to repair. And in the worst-case scenario, they can place the heart into a new body. Jantunan Garrison Knight's wreckage has been sent to Jantunan. The ones here are the Lahiala Pilot Academy's robots. The boy on top of the carriage, Ernesty, looks towards the back with a blank expression. There must be parts from the Scarlet Silhouette Knight on the wagon too, but it is covered by the canvas so Eru can't tell where it is. The last scene of the fight with the behemoth while piloting Gael flashed across his mind. He feels the bump of the carriage as he reminisces. The action I took was a gamble largely dependent on luck. In order to avoid this, I need a machine that won't fall apart even when operating at full power. And this problem should not be entrusted to others lightly. Right now, Eru is the only one who can make a robot break down in such a short period of time, so he is the only one who wants to resolve it. He will create his personal machine one day. He needs to plan for that day. Eru, are you brooding over here? As he was feeling troubled over many things, someone approached him from behind and hugs him. There is only one person who will do that in Eru's mind. He turns to look at Adi behind him. Yeah, I am thinking about how to resolve the weakness in the previous battle. Why are you thinking about that again? Adi looks displeased as she leans forward. Adi is taller than Eru, so Eru is squashed when Adi leans in with her body weight. Eru protests as his body bends forward uncomfortably. I know, but I have to think it over when I have time, or it will be a problem in the future. The pressure behind him relaxes slightly, allowing Eru to breathe. Adi stops moving and her displeasure fades, replaced by a troubled expression. Eru, you really? I hope you can promise me one thing. What promise? Don't go by yourself, take us with you. That's a bit. Eru couldn't see Adi's face, but he can feel the sincerity from her voice. Eru didn't turn back and looked ahead, thinking about Adi's request. He has been setting Silhouette Knights as his goals, and working towards that means. We might not be able to help, but. Don't say that. It depends on the situation. Really. I can't pilot a Silhouette Knight. How about telling us what you plan to do? At this point, Eru couldn't reject her. I understand. I will do my best. But it is an emergency, it will have to wait. HMMP. That's a cunning way to put it. Even though we can't do much, but 3 heads are better than 1. Haha, that's right, 3 of us is. 3. Adi's casual words made Eru think. In his heart is a famous story, and inspiration strikes. 3 are better than 1. 3 arrows compared to 1 arrow. 1 arrow is easy to break, but it is hard to break if there are 3. Right, it is fragile and easy to break because it is separated. That hurts. What ARF you doin'? Adi pulls both of Eru's cheek as he was spacing out. Pay attention when talking to others, that was rude. HMPF. That hurts. You are absolutely right, that was ill-mannered of me. Adi looks at Eru nursing his cheeks painfully and thought of a good idea. She approached Eru from the side with a smile. Eru has a foreboding feeling looking at Adi's smile. Right, I know a way. Teach me how to pilot Silhouette Knights. Why to use this method? Eru groans and smiles awkwardly at Adi, and wonders how things had come to this. The roasted beef in the center of the table gives off a delicious aroma. The cramped place around it are full of dishes. Eru's mother Celestina Echevarria is pouring soup into a large bowl. Beside her is the mother of the twins, Ilmatar Alta, Ilma, who arranges the freshly baked pie. The extravagant dishes made the two happy as they laid out the plates. Is it time for your Adi to learn to cook? Ho ho, it's about time. That child is always messing around with CHID. They finished the preparation nimbly as they chatted and called the families to have dinner. The 2 families gathered shortly after and ate happily. This is the Echevarria residence. The Echevarrias and the Alters are together for a party to celebrate the safe return of the children. The parents plan to welcome them back after the field trip all along. But the children were involved in an unprecedented demon beast invasion instead. The faces of every parent turned green when they received the news, including these two families. Ilma's only family are the twins. Her anxiety is indescribable. She couldn't stay alone in that state, so the Echeverias took her in for the time being. Now, both the children and the parents had deepened the friendship. Fortunately, the crisis was over and the children had returned safely. All the families were busy and relieved. To be frank, it's great that everyone is safe. Ilma watched the kids finish off the dishes and sigh. Tears well up in her eyes and fell as she relaxed. Ilma quickly covers her face. We made you worry. As you can see, we are not hurt. This is a miracle. That's great. The most important thing is that you are safe. Your appetite is good, as if nothing had ever happened. Nom nom nom. Nom nom nom. Swallow your food before talking. CHID and AD continues to stuff the face despite the mother's instruction. They were eating tasteless preserved food while traveling, so they are focusing on the delicacy before them. We heard that it was really dangerous, but you all seem fine. What did Eru do? Yes. Behemoth and I beat each other up. Cough. Cough cough. Matthias chokes on his food when he hears the conversation between the mother and child. Ara, wasn't the demon beast really big? Are you okay? Did you give it a good beating? I borrowed a silhouette knight from a senpai, so I'm okay. It was rather dangerous, but I beat it up really well and won. Ara, you can borrow silhouette knights. That's wonderful, Eru. But don't be too reckless. It's not something you can borrow anytime you want, right? That's right. Luckily we had that good senpai, who aided me. Matthias forced himself to look away from the two of them. The others casually ignored the conversation. In some way, this family was really disciplined. Only Eru's grandfather refrained from speaking during dinner, watching everything. After finishing, he called out to Eru. Eru, I want you to accompany me to someplace, all right? Okay, Grandpa. Where are we going? We are going to Fremavira Kingdom capital, Kankanen. Located at the foot of Mount Auburn, it served as a front-line fortress in the past. The highway on either side was made with robust stones, a legacy from its days as a fortress. Several layers of walls are erected with the capital at its heart. Only the outermost siege wall has defensive functions, the rest are used for zonal segregation. Its existence is a testament of the history of this city and nation. In the center of the capital lies Castle Schreiber. The castle has traces of its days as a fortress, ancient and majestic. Even now, the tough appearance of the fortress commands respect. Its reputation as the Kingdom of Knights is presented harmoniously, allowing all visitors to feel the pride of the city. In the heart of Castle Schreiber is an audience hall for the king to receive his guest. It is a vast space with a high ceiling, enough for silhouette knights to enter comfortably. Elegant drapes are hung on all the walls in fixed intervals on the pillars. A red carpet is rolled out in the center, and at its end is the throne for the king. An amazingly big seat is situated behind the throne, with a silhouette knight sitting on it. That was the personal silhouette knight of the king, known as the King's Knight, Raids of Valor. Its appearance was more elegant than any machine within Fremavira. A cape with the same pattern as the national flag covers its shoulders, displaying the majesty of a knight standing at the very peak. Carderias piloted by the royal guards are positioned to the side of the hall with Raids of Valor right at the center, a powerful and intimidating scene. Sometimes, the hall will be cramped with soldiers and silhouette knights, but there are only a few people here today. A middle-aged man was sitting on the throne before Raids of Valor, the 10th king of the Fremavira kingdom, Ambrosius Tavo Fremavira. In front of him are Marquis Joachim Surati and Jantunan garrison knights commander Philip Halligan. According to customs, they have to address the king while kneeling on one knee with the heads down. After the king grants him permission, Philip's raised his head to report. That concludes the report for the battle with the behemoth. King Ambrosius acknowledged with a grunt and a nod after listening to the detailed report from Philip. He was holding a concise report in his hand and was browsing it as he listened. And the carcass of the behemoth. Your Majesty, it's impossible for the garbage collectors to harvest a colossal beast like the behemoth. I have dispatched the Silhouette Knights to assist them. It should be completed in the next few days. I want to use its carcass to offset our losses. But our casualties are light, considering the opponent was a battalion-level demon beast. Your Majesty, Jantunan's forces are depleted. Please allow me to send some reinforcement to support them. Ambrosius focused on one point of the report as he listens to Joachim. It is the logs of the Scarlet Knight and its pilot Ernesti. A baffled expression appears on the king's face. Echevarria, Laurie's grandson. What an exceptional performance. Isn't that right, Philip? It is unbelievable. Did this child really topple the demon beast before everyone? Yes, Your Majesty, I saw it with my own eyes. I understand the content seems dubious to Your Majesty. Philip couldn't give a precise answer to the king in regards to this, and his voice grows gradually softer. In fact, Joachim was doubtful as he listens to the conversation between them. I don't think he will spin such a ridiculous tale, but this makes me worried. Especially this part, rewriting the script in the Magus engine. If that's true, that is really marvelous. Half of it are rumors, but I saw it myself. And I'm convinced that it really happened. I heard the same report. Only Sir Halogen and the knights know the truth. Ambrosius closed his eyes. The ability to fight a behemoth is amazing, but that is only a might of one man. But it is different if he can reprogram the magic engine, which is a skill that has no precedent. After thinking it over, he mumbles. This child is too dangerous. Philip panicked when he heard this. Eru literally saved the lives of dozens of pilots with his participation. They couldn't commend Eru because of the state of things, but Eru accepted it unconditionally, so Philip owes him a favor. He might be a youth that is much younger than him, but having fought as comrades, Philip won't forget how Eru saved his knights. Your Majesty, allow me to report. This boy might be just 12, but he is knowledgeable and courageous. His etiquette is fine and his peers like him. More importantly, he was always on the front lines during the battle with the behemoth. Ambrosius stopped Philip's words with a wave of his hand. Don't worry, I am not planning to do anything to him. It might be fine now, but you say he is just 12 years of age. Having amazing power at such a tender age. Since he is just a 12-years-old boy, he might grow wild with his exceptional strength. That's my worry. Ambrosius was right to be worried. No matter how talented or pure in character, people can change with the passage of time. Especially a 12-year-old who is moving into a rebellious and emotional age. If he grows arrogant because of his talent, it will harm him in the end. But inside Ernesti was a soul with 40 years of experience, so normal conventions don't apply to him. But that is beyond their imaginations, so they are worried that Eru will stray from the right path in the future. If that's the case, what should we do? Since he doesn't chase mindlessly after glory, he might become a great knight. We need to guide him. It might be unnecessary since Laurie is there. All right. Arrange for Ernesti to meet me. After Ambrosius issues his orders, Joachim and Philip bows and acknowledged.